Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Caramel Sportscast. I am your host, Stephen Avos, alongside my dad.
Hello.
And two very special guests of ours, my Uncle Chris.
Woohoo!
And my Uncle Joey.
Hi.
We're very excited to be doing this here. Something we've been planning out for a little bit. All of us talking about sports at once. We look forward to this. How do you guys feel?
First time doing this. Unlike my brother Joey, who's done it once before. It's kind of exciting. I'm looking forward to the discourse.
I just wish we could have done it a little bit earlier to include my late brother, Phil, which he was on a podcast number 4, I do believe. If you want to go back to the archives and listen to that one, it's a very good episode. Anyway, this is in honor of him.
This is going to be real nice. I'm here sharing this with my brother and my nephew, and actually, I expect to learn a few things.
No, we're all going to be learning something. But anyways, we're going to start things off with talking about a article from The Athletic. They had a little interview with anonymous MLB agents, and they were talking about the A's, where they are right now, and some things about their ownership. And one of the questions was asking about if they believe that the A's really did lose money because of the pandemic, or their claim about how much they lost. And the consensus, the main answer was no. With the way that this team is, they really shouldn't have lost that money. And we already know that there's a lot of issues with their ownership. When the pandemic started, and people were trying to furlough their employees, make sure that they're paid a bit, while they can't work. The A's were the last team to do that. Jeff Fisher, he's been known well as a penny pincher amongst the owners. Every rich person, could be like that, but Fisher, oh my goodness, on a much bigger level. He's worth about $2.1 billion, and yet the A's payroll is bottom 5 consistently, and it's a shame.
Rich get richer. That's why.
Well, you look at just the different teams that were in the Bay Area. Mark Davis was one of the poor owners, and now he's in Vegas, and he's going to make pretty good money.
And he purchased a WNBA team.
Yeah, he did. The Aces, and
let's be real. I could buy a WNBA team.
No, maybe. And then you have Lakeup over for the Warriors, and he's one of the most. He's like the DiBartolo of basketball. He's willing to put out all the money he wants to get the team as a championship team because that's what he wants. And then you have guys like Fisher who are just happy to own a team and don't really care about being at a championship team or not. He just wants to be part of the group of owners or owning a baseball team on his resume.
He gets to tell his buddies, "Hey, I own a team."
Yeah, I mean it's.
Not knowing a great deal about the current A's, I do know the history of the A's, and they've had a history of not too good owners. When I talk of not too good owners, I think of owners that don't take care of the team. If you are a wealthy owner, such as the one we have now, such as the one we had before, going back Ken Hoffman and even before that, you don't become rich by being stupid with your money. A wealthy person can do a lot with money for their teams if they choose to. Mm-hmm. If they choose to. One of the reasons that I do not follow the A's anymore is because a trend started in the early 90s that they would simply by draft and simply by grabbing players, becoming good players over the course of one season. Then there was an overhaul and a mass liquidation of all these great players going to teams like New York, like LA, the big markets, and they make money. So they have money to spend as little as possible on the next harvest of players. And I think the entity that suffers the most is the fans.
Oh, easily.
Well, what we were saying about on the way over here, we were talking about how we would look at other people's, like All-Star time. How many All-Stars are ex-Oakland A's?
Oh, yeah. Well, you also, Joey mentioned the 90s. Well, as part of what we'll talk about later, it's been going on with the A's since the 70s when they dismantled.
Oh, sure.
When they dismantled the championship team that they had and gave away Hunter and Bando and Rick Monday just to get rid of them and cut the payroll. So you had these great teams or potentially great teams, and we're basically a farm system for Major League Baseball.
Yeah,
Instead of a team that's trying to build a championship, we're building championships for other team by being the most expensive farm club there is.
Yeah, and like you were talking earlier about, like you mentioned Lake Up earlier. You know, one thing that Lake Up does is he invests not only like in the team just to buy them, but he invests in them to win. That's what Fisher doesn't do. He invested to buy them. He bought them at $180 million, and right now the team is worth $1.1 billion.
And the sad thing is that at the same time, many times during the years with the A's, they've had opportunities to have local groups, conglomerate groups, buy the team that were invested in them being in Oakland, that were invested in winning, that had local baseball stars, retired players as the lead guy in a group that would buy the A's and look to make them better. And they were the ones bypassed.
Yeah.
And to give them to some guy who had more money but had no feel for improving the team at all.
Hey, you have to admit it too. If you're a baseball owner or a football owner or a basketball owner, you make money hand over fist. So I mean, for them, I mean, it's for some it's like a game. It's like, okay, well, like or status quo type thing. Well, I own this team. I own this. I got this. You own any team, you're going to make a shitload of money.
Yeah, there is no for him to cry that he's losing money. Well, I'm sure when you're talking about losing money, yeah, you lost money of what you would have made with attendance and parking and stuff like that because you didn't have that, but you didn't lose money, not really.
Especially with the TV contract.
You just didn't make as much, and that's the big point. Major League Baseball teams, sports teams, it's always about not making as much. It's never about losing money, except hockey. Hockey would be the one exception because they're just not. The fans are very fervent in the big areas, but in a lot of areas they're not, and they're not big money players and things like that. They pay so much more to these other the three major sports that you do have to have money, and you have to be invested to go ahead and say, I'm going to get the best players, I'm going to pay them good money, and put us in there to win.
Yeah.
So,
Steve, going along with the point about the money and the low payroll that the A's have had, because I'm kind of ignorant in this category. In this,
you're ignorant in most categories.
But that's what I wanted to really stay away from.
Okay.
Don't do that.
Okay.
Please.
cut that.
Do you notice, as a fan and an avid fan, such as my brother Martin, do you notice fan anger of any kind? Do you hear talk shows or anything where fans are just say to themselves, "Look, we are tired of being a doormat for the league. We are tired of having a good team and you selling off our best players." Do you hear that kind of anger? Because I don't, but I don't follow them as much as you do.
Oh yeah, they're really angry. I'm with multiple group chats that consist of A's fans or even people that aren't even A's fans, and they for people on the outside they'll mainly just be sympathetic. Like, yeah, I feel really bad for you guys. Like, it's gonna be hard for you guys to win, and then other A's fans is like, well, we just don't think we'll ever win a World Series. Like we can ever win. It's like who that kind of mentality to be stuck in. It's like just knowing that you might never win because of the way the ownership is. It's like, how do you even want to watch them anymore if you know you might never see a World Series?
I've always used the analogy of your comparison with the payrolls. Is that one day the A's are going to have another world champion. They're going to throw darts and they're going to land just the right players at just the right time in their careers, and they're going to have a world championship team. But at the end of the year, that team will no longer exist.
Yeah, that's if we keep the same ownership.
I think also you find that whereas before, what's currently happening now with the A's is they are kind of keeping some core players, Chapman and Olsen, and they're looking to maybe keep those core players, which they didn't do before. I was kind of upset about them moving Simeon because he was they had groomed him from not being a very good shortstop defensively to being a pretty adequate, if not good shortstop, and a great hitter, and now they've moved him. So that kind of put them in a hole again. Picking up Elvis Andrus was good, but I think they only did that because they're getting most of his contract paid with the money they're getting from Texas.
Yeah, but with Simeon in particular, it would have been tough to sign him to a large contract after an off year. He had actually had a year and a half where he didn't do much at all. Last year was a down year. I think everybody would agree with him because expectations were going to be high. But then again, the A's told him last year, we're not going to sign you. Remember, they said, we're not going to re-sign you.
I didn't know.
And they kept to their word. They didn't even give him a phone call, man. He was waiting for
there
a
was
phone
an
call.
offer. There was an offer.
And that's a preposterous offer. I mean,
But it was an offer nonetheless.
okay, well,
Well, that's like
please
you know,
remind the people of what the offer was. Steve.
yeah. What was the offer?
It was basically like 12.5 million overall, but it was going to be like, I think like 12 million, no, like something in the first year. Like
$2 million the first year.
And then like it was going to be 1 million for the next like
10 years.
like vanilla.
Yeah.
That's a joke.
Yeah.
A player would you say, what?
That's not really that's not when you say we made an offer to you and you're that pathetic about it. You're basically saying we don't want you, and so that's almost insulting. Losing guys like Hendricks and Soria from their bullpen wasn't great, but they did pick up the Adam Kolarek from the Dodgers.
Is he projected to be a reliever or starter?
He's always been a reliever. He's listed as a lefty killer.
Lefty killer.
One of these guys that comes
like that
in
name.
generally against left-handed pitch hitters, and he's got a great left-handed hitters have a really low ERA against them. Some would say that being with the 3 rule thing, if you have a lefty and then 2 righties coming after him, and he has to pitch to all 3.
Well, when that happens,
it might
you get a righty killer.
No, you can't. You have to have him face at least the 3 batters, and then. But I mean, you look at the A's up the middle. You have with Murphy when he comes back, if he's healthy, Laureano, Andrus. The biggest issue is second base. They don't have anybody there. They're talking about doing. Lowry just came back in.
They do have Kemp.
They have Kemp and they have Pinder, kind of going back and forth, lefty righty. And
I like
they
Kemp.
just
I like Pinter.
And they just brought in Lowry.
Yeah.
Which
Jed. Jed.
If he comes back from his injury, well, they could have one of the better up the middle defenses in the in Major League Baseball. I really think that Laureano's a plus defensive player.
Is that 2 pluses?
2 pluses.
Wow.
It is
big.
He's huge. I mean, he's excellent. Great arm, but offensively, he's
Because personally, I was going to say +1.5, but for you to say plus,
plus.
that's wow.
I know.
That's big.
I know. We're not going to. We're giving that extra half.
Okay, I'll give you that extra half.
I thank you.
You're welcome.
And then my only problem with Lowry though is that he has dealt with a lot of injuries, and it's been a while since he's actually I think even played.
It's almost 2 years.
Yeah, I know.
A year and a half.
And I just feel like someone like Kemp, Tony Kemp, or whoever else might be in the system, like Pinder, will probably win that job. Although I think Pinder will be used as a utility man as he usually is.
But the thing is, since the A's have such a good rotation, they could rotate him so there's not as much wear and tear on Lowry as in him playing every single day. They got Kemp, they got Pinter, and they got Lowry if he chooses to sign with the A's.
Plus, I believe Lowry is more of a utility. He can also play short.
Yeah, he played short.
He played short in the third, didn't he? Also.
Yeah.
So
No, have him DH.
So you have.
He's still got
he's a bat.
Well, no, I think when you look at DHs, I really don't. When I see a DH, I like to see a guy who has excellent power and good overall hitting.
Would you object to having a DH that batted over 300 that had hits instead of striking out and walking back to the dugout with his head between his ass like Davis did a lot?
Well, Davis, I was glad they got rid of Davis.
Same here.
Davis was
high five on that
one. To me, Davis was a huge liability because every once in a while they would feel the need to, especially when they played National League teams, to get him in the lineup, they would put him in the outfield. And,
big mistake.
Oh my God, it was like watching a little leaguer play.
Every time the ball went to the left side, it was like, oh my God, what's going to happen?
It was the worst thing ever. He had no arm. He had horrible skills in the outfield as far as chasing down balls, getting the ball back in the right way. And so he was just a huge liability that way. And his hitting had gone from amazing for that 3-year span to all of a sudden he couldn't hit anything.
And what caused that injury? When he tried to play defense in the National League Park, when he ran into the wall, and he was a different player after that.
Yeah, but one thing though is you mentioned Lowry like 300 hitting. It's like but that was 3 years ago, and like with the injuries he dealt with, I don't think he can be the same player either. A lot of his like hitting relies on getting doubles. Like that means you kind of get a lot of good hits, but he's not a DH to me. Like what Chris said, you want a guy who's like really strong, can hit home runs.
I would prefer that, but we were talking earlier. The A's really don't have a DH.
I think Canna would be a better DH if they have someone else at left field.
The problem is Canna, although he's not a great.
He do it?
He's not a great defensive player either. He's an adequate defensive player, but his offense is kind of sketchy. But when he's on,
he
can carry a team.
Yeah,
he will hit home runs. He'll hit extra base hits. He'll drive in runs, and he's one of the guys that they're going to put in the outfield. He'll probably be their starting left fielder, or right fielder, one of the two, depending on who they decide to put in the other side. But
but what about Piscotty?
Well, Piscotty's obviously the guy they've looked at as filling out that outfield, but he's also had a lot of injury issues. And overall, if you look at the A's bench, what they have currently is horrible. It's not terribly good. I don't say horrible. It's just not terribly good. There's no outstanding players. You look at other teams, you have all-stars coming out the bench, especially in the teams that are like Yankees and Boston and some of the top teams. They have all-stars coming off the bench or old all-stars coming off the bench. The A's have minor leaguers that are just better than, maybe, like I said, better than AAA, but just not quite super good major league players. They're just average major league players at best. And that's going to hurt them. That's going to hurt them, especially if they end up having, like the years before, like Chapman or Olsen go down. It goes from, being a player up at the top of the Empire State Building dropping down to the street with the next player they bring in.
Well, I think the best thing about the A's bench is they have a lot of players that can play different positions. They have players, last year was a great year, especially with the outfield. They had 6 outfielders and about 4 or 5 infielders. A lot of outfielders were able to play the infield as well. They were very flexible as far as the players they had on the bench.
And I think the great thing about the A's that has kept them in position year after year is Melvin. Melvin's been, I don't think he's a great coach for the end of the year, but during the season, he's kind of a rah-rah guy. He gets his young players to play hard. He gets his young players to accept sitting down, coming in when needed. They're always ready, and it's proved to be a successful thing until they get into a situation where they have to prove themselves in big times like playoffs or playoff runs, and it hasn't worked as well. And I think Melvin's made a lot of bad decisions on during the playoffs and or playoff runs that have really, really hurt the A's.
Honestly, I cut him some slack for how things went in the divisional series against the Astros last year, mainly because, like, especially on pitching, every pitcher besides Liam Hendricks in that series like imploded. Like the pitching was so good that year, and then when it came to going against the Astros, all of them were just getting raked for the whole series. It was so embarrassing to watch. It's like, what can he even do about it? But yeah, Melvin does make a lot of bad decisions in bullpen.
If you look at the year before, when they had a chance, and what did they do? They started a reliever.
Mania. No, that was 2 years ago.
Oh, 2 years ago they started a reliever, and they put all relievers in before they got to and the relievers were getting shelled. I mean, it made no sense. You had Friars. Friars has twice been ready to go for these playoff runs, and he's been their top pitcher. And for whatever reason, Melvin has decided not to start him in the playoffs or the one-game playoff, which would put them into a series. And that's one of the hugely frustrating things watching them when they've had the chance to go somewhere, losing these one-game series is because of just really bad decisions. I think on the part of Melvin and or Billy Beane, who's ever making the decision.
With the one game playoff series, I've never been comfortable with that, and I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I don't think a season should. I don't think any season should make or break on one game. Just
unless it's football.
I think it's the most unfair situation.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah,
it should be best out of three. I mean, what the hell you're having? If you're going to have, you can skip the whole one-game playoff thing and make it 100 instead of 162 game season. Make it 152, and you can have a 3-game playoff to start, a wild card, and then all the other playoff games after that, 7 games. Well, instead of a 1 game, then a five game series, and then a 7-game series. No, just do the 3 games instead of this 1 and off bullshit.
Especially that 1 year where the A's came in tied with Texas and had to have a 1-game playoff, and then immediately go into a 1-game one-off game, and made it very hard for them. They had depleted their pitching going into that. Had to put their best pitcher in for that 1-game playoff to get into the 1-game cancellation game, and they were depleted, and they end up losing that follow-up game in that 1-game series.
Of course, changing the whole how many games they play a year. Like I just got through saying that, they could change it to 100 instead of 162. They could change it to 152. Well, that's a whole players' contract thing, which means they want to get less money. The owners want to give them less money because they're playing 10 less games, even though they would make that up in the playoffs with the higher price tickets. That's pretty much a fantasy thing. It's not going to happen for a while because baseball has sold this 1-game, one and done package that they want to keep it that way.
Yeah, it seems like it's made less for baseball than it is for entertainment value, because it's the only 1 game, and they want you to believe that, man, this is the game to watch because this is going to decide this or it's going to decide that. Any way you look at it, I think it's unfair.
There's another pickup the A's did, not a pickup, but a signing, which was, I think, huge, was bringing back Friars for another year.
Yeah.
With all their pitchers, Luzardo, Bassett, Montez, Manaya, all really young pitchers, and Puck even, who's might come up.
Puck. I've heard that name before.
AJ Puck.
Yes, the guy who has he pitched yet?
He pitched a bit in 2019.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. Maybe that's why I don't remember him.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Anyway, having Friars there as a stabilizing force, as a veteran to help the players get through and get used to playing. If they can stay away from injuries with their starting pitcher, they should have one of the best starting pitching staffs, I think, in the major leagues. Those pitchers are just amazing to me. I really think they're
Yeah, they
Really,
got
really
have a
good.
big upside.
Yeah.
And anyways, now that spring training is underway, there's still some problems going on. Maltas is dealing with COVID. Sean Murphy was recovering from a collapsed lung surgery. Where do we expect this team to be, like win wise? Like, I'm thinking like 80 to 90 around that range. Like I think they could still be a good team despite how bad the offseason has been.
I think it's going to come down to more than just the players themselves. It's going to come down to how healthy they're able to stay. I mean, they do not have a lot of depth, and so when you have their key players, which I mentioned some of them earlier, Laureano, Chapman, Olsen, Murphy, those guys which are going to be their mainstays as far as their offense goes, you lose those players, and Canna having a good season overall instead of just spotty. You need the offense, and as good a pitching as they're going to have, they need them both to be working for them to be. But I would say, looking at what they have, if they can go without too many injuries, 80, 90, I think that's very doable.
Would you like to put an exact number on that? So later on we can go,
No.
well, I will. I'm going to tell you how many. In fact, I am going to be correct. And I will pay each one of you nothing for every game that I'm off. I say they're going to win 89 games.
93.
91.
Oh, what happened? You're not making a pick.
Because I want to make you look bad.
Okay. Okay. Well, just compare mugs in the mirror. You'll make me look bad right there.
See, look. Do we need to go there, really? Come on.
Anything else that we expect for the season? Is there any other team just in general that you guys are thinking about baseball?
Well,
of course, like Dodgers are probably going to be a clear.
Look at the Dodgers and the Padres.
The Padres are.
Holy crap!
I'm hearing nothing.
I would not want to be in the National League West.
I'm telling you, the Padres are supposed to be just a beast, and I don't like. I follow the A's a little bit, but I do read articles on the different teams a little bit here and there. And all the articles I read are that the Padres are just going to be, I mean, they are hands down like the favorite, I think, to win it right now, which is odd. I mean, you think the last time the Padres were the favorite to win it was when the batter.
2 years ago.
No,
Was it last year actually?
Well, they were
contender.
okay.
I
mean, when they had that's right, Tony Gwynn. When they had Tony Gwynn and they had that team, they had, with possibly the worst uniforms ever. During a couple of years there, I think 84. You said 84 and 98, I believe.
Yes.
They made World Series appearances, and their teams were good, really good. But since '98, they haven't had much of anything, except maybe last year they did fairly well. But all of a sudden now they are just going to be supposedly this beast of a team that is just going to run over everybody. But that would be the one that I know of.
Yeah, you can't forget the Dodgers either. The Dodgers are still a really good team in general, so we can't forget what they can still do.
Yeah, because they're adding to their team as they even though they won the World Championship, they're adding some incredible players.
Yeah, but they also
none of which I know of.
Puig and Justin Turner. Justin Turner was a big guy on their team. He was a solid defensive player, and he was a clutch offensive player.
He resigned.
I thought he didn't he go to another team?
He just resigned.
Yeah.
He just resigned with them?
Yeah, which is really surprising. I thought he was going to go somewhere else, to be honest. Or I thought he already was somewhere else.
I thought he already was too. I thought I had read it. So my bad.
No problem. But Puig, his situation is really confusing. I thought he was talking with someone, and then I think that fell through. It was a really weird situation overall. But I'm not going to sleep on the Dodgers either. I think that's going to be a great division race going on between those two teams.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think Houston's getting older too. And so there's no guarantee that they're going to be the same. I mean, their pitching had a lot of veteran pitchers, and every year that they get older, there's a chance they're not as good, and the A's are just have these young pitchers, and so there's a good chance that the A's could do really well against in the National League West, or the American League West, I should say.
I'm still pissed about how manhandled the A's got by the Astros in the divisional series. We were manhandling them throughout the season.
But the A's did get off the snide. They broke a streak of how many games that they had to win.
The elimination games.
Elimination games
Yeah.
of how many years,
Oh,
and they hadn't won at home in even longer amount since the 70s. I think they hadn't won a series deciding game series at the Coliseum.
Yeah. Huh?
Why don't talking about? I mean, we are talking about local teams. Our local teams, but Joey, you're the Giants fan. What do you know about the Giants? Do you know stuff about the Giants?
Well, they just they too got old. They had a nice little mini dynasty. 10, 12, and 14. They were world champions. They were the best team in baseball, bar none. They had the best pitching. They had the best bench. They had power hitters. They had defensive men. They were an all-round good team. I will have to tell you, too, by experience, that for as good a team as they weren't always the most exciting team to watch, which was, basically because of their good pitching. There just wasn't a whole lot of explosion on the mound, I mean, and that's just behind the plate. So, but you know what? I'll take a world championship over that any day.
They were always a very good timely hitting team.
Yeah,
they hit when they had to win the games,
yeah.
And often their pitching was so good it held up for wins. But they weren't a hugely dynamic offensive team. They were much more a defensive team and a pitching team that carries over. And I don't think they even have that anymore.
No,
I see nothing. I see a lot of problems for the Giants this upcoming year. They haven't improved themselves at all. They're getting rid of. I heard they might trade Belter. He's already been traded. I'm not sure which. I just don't see
when ownership is focused on putting together a winning team. We were talking about managements and owners earlier. Well, San Francisco, when their ownership was put into place, their dynasty started 2 years later, and it lasted for 6 years. Then we had, I don't know if you remember, read the papers about the internal and personal problems of a few of the owners. There was, without getting into dirt, it was pretty profound, and it was a definite reflection on how the team went after that. Can it come back? I honestly do believe it will, but it's going to take a while. It's certainly not going to be this year. It's not going to be next year, but I say within the next 3 to 4 years, the Giants will be strong contenders for a ring.
Did you want to say something about Petit and Romo?
Those are some additional signings they made. One is a re-signing, and I'm glad that they have Petit because he was very consistent last year, and even the year before that too. I really like having him on the team. And
Who's
Petit for the reliever for the A's.
Okay.
Yeah, he was really consistent. And then Romo, it's like if you see the name, it's like, oh, Romo, and then you think about it for just a second after, it's like, oh, wait a minute, isn't he old?
No, but you know what? I looked at his stat. I looked at his stats, and his stats. I was kind of surprised. He had in 20 innings, he had 23 strikeouts, which is, that's better than average.
But he gave up 46 hits.
Well, that may be true, but he also.
I'm totally kidding about that.
One of the things that stat doesn't say, and because he was a former Giant for a long time, I do know this about him. He might have had 23 strikeouts in, what was it?
23 strikeouts in 20 innings.
Okay. Now, the people that know him, people that have followed his career, he is not what you would call a a strikeout king, yes, and also he is not a clutch pitcher. When he gets into trouble, he folds like a cheap suit. He can go and do these strikeouts, and he can, be a good reliever in that. But if the game is on the line, if there's something at stake, his talent seems to wane a bit. And I know that just by watching.
I don't think he's going to have the opportunity to be in a lot of situations with the A's. I think they're going to use him as a spot guy coming in. He could
Long
be just
reliever.
a fill guy for a long reliever, just because they're games they're losing or games they're ahead, and just they need an inning to get a guy through to their main closers and the last 7th, 8th, 9th guys. I don't see him unless he just does some kind of miracle comeback where he's solid again. I just see him being someone who's just going to be a bridge guy, someone to eat innings.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think that's like a 6th or 7th inning person. And, maybe if the starter just isn't doing well, as you said earlier. But knowing like how the thing is with their development, like Scott Emerson, the bullpen coach, he is great at coaching bullpen pitchers, and like for a while, the A's have been able to have some really good bullpens for the past few years. So I feel like some of that could rub off on Romo there, and he could improve.
Better rub hard.
One thing you were talking about, Chris, you were talking about earlier about coaching, and you mentioned the name of a coach that you said that during the season he was really great at Melvin directing. My question, and I wanted to ask you this when you were talking, was because you sound like you know a lot more of it than I do. What the difference? What makes a coach, a good coach in any sport, a good coach that can not only lead a team to the promised land, but take them, to the promised land, as opposed to a coach who is only good, say, during the regular season, but when it comes down to the real nitty-gritty of it, is there coaches that actually change their style, or I didn't understand quite how you meant that about Coach Melvin.
Well, like one example I think of, one a difference between a good coach in the regular season and one that takes you to the promised land is a great example for basketball. What the Warriors had with Mark Jackson, he was like a good coach for the regular season, but they just couldn't get over the hump with him. And really, Steve Kerr, his first 4 years, they get rings.
Yeah.
He was, I think they're going well with him. And it's like that carrying over that hump. But of course, the question was mainly what did they do?
Only what they inherited after that, because you can say the same thing about John Gruden when he went to the Bucks, first time out, world championship. But then there is the backstory about the team that he played, and Callahan, making the mistake of not changing the playbook. So my question truly was, does a good coach, the one that takes the team through and does get to the promised land, what makes him, does he change his coaching style, and then the coach that can't do it doesn't know how to adapt to that pressure situation of playoffs, given baseball, basketball, football?
Okay. I would say this. A coach in baseball, it runs different with every sport. In baseball, over a long season, you have 162 games. You can fill this guy in. You can fill this guy in. You throw a pitcher out. He loses. It's one loss. As you get to the playoffs, you play a team maybe 5 times in a row. You have to be able to adjust on the fly to put the players that you see are hitting and aren't hitting. You have to adjust the pitchers that are pitching well and aren't pitching well into the positions where they're going to be successful. And often, Melvin does not make those changes. He plays it like he has 162 games to win or lose in the playoffs. And you can't do that. You have to focus your team to win that game. Then the next game you look at, okay, we have this guy, a good example is almost every playoff you see, all of a sudden one guy's hitting like crazy. Some like in the year that A's lost to the Dodgers, Mickey Hatcher went nuts. He won the MVP for the series that year. You just realize I'm not going to pitch to Mickey Hatcher. But often you look at, well, Mickey Hatcher's a nobody, and this is what Melvin would have done. Mickey Hatcher's a nobody, and he doesn't have I look at his metrics on a computer, and it says that he doesn't hit left-handers well, but that series, he's hitting everybody well. And that's not what Mel would do. They would look at the metrics for the season and not look at the metrics for what he's doing right at that moment.
It makes
now,
sense.
in basketball, in football, it's the same thing. You play half of a game, and you realize, you know what? We're not running well. These guys are doing this. Okay, what can we do in the second half to change everything? And you see this with good coaches. In the second half, they dominate a team. Often that dominated them in the first half. They couldn't do anything in the first half. They come back in the second half and they dominate them. Defensively and offensively. That's what a good coach does, because they make the changes necessary to counteract the thing that this one coach did. And often a coach that's not good will come up with a defensive plan and never change it throughout the game. And then that second half, they try to do the same things. We stopped them in the first half. So let's continue that stuff. Let's not have that go down. Second half, they get stuffed on the same defensive plays because that team has decided, you know what? We're not going to do swing passes out anymore. We're not going to do little flip passes. We're going to fake that flip pass and go down the field with a play and burn them. So that's what I mean when I say a coach is good for a short run or for a long run, but not good for a focused game where you have to win.
Okay, so that's pretty much our thoughts on the A's. And like one last little note, I'll just mention this, is that Melvin is also on his last year too of his contract. So there's gonna be a lot going on if he's gonna get an extension, possibly, or they're just gonna write out the contract and then that'll be it for him. Who knows? But
I think he's a perfect coach for the A's, because no other coach is gonna deal with the abnormality of the owner like him. He's only has so much of a budget to deal with, so I mean that has a lot to do with his decisions. He just doesn't have the money. Not him in particular, of course, but the ownership isn't putting out the money for a good team, and Melvin is making the best of what he has.
Yeah, but
and he's been good at that for the last 8 years.
No, and I'm not saying he's a very good coach.
Oh, he is.
And any team would love to have him.
Love to have him.
And they would. Love, plus. He's a plus coach.
A little plus.
He's a little plus coach. But, I mean, when it comes to it, yeah, he's just either by way of not having the talent that he needs or whatever else, he just never is. He's just not a playoff coach. He's just not. He's shown it a number of times. Anyway.
Yeah, so now on to our next topic. We're going to be talking about the Warriors. We're just going to talk now about where we think they are at the moment. Right now they are, I believe, 15 and 13.
And they're in the 8th spot.
Yeah. It's been a really up and down year. Literally, like, they haven't had a losing or winning streak go beyond 2 games. It's literally been back and forth this whole year.
Yeah.
And
I think pretty much the whole NBA has been up and down.
Except for the Jazz.
Except for the Jazz and Lakers, but who knows what's gonna happen with them with Davis out? So
Yeah.
I got news that KD is going to be out against them today, so that's going to help the Lakers a bit.
Yeah. Well, the thing about the Warriors is they are they're looking for consistency. They're a motion offense and a motion defense, and to run those kind of offenses and defenses, I see them running now because of the lack of players. They're running a 4-1 defense with Curry as the point up on the top of the defense, and a four back guys running a zone. And they've never done it before. No teams don't win running zones, and that's a problem. But they don't have with some of the players that they haven't had, like Looney out and some of the other defensive players, Wiseman being out for a while. They have to have their core people there to gain some measure of consistency. And right now, with guys going out on a regular basis, they just haven't had the core people together to work on that stuff enough to get that motion offense going, to get that motion defense going that Ron Adams is just a stud at. and they show promise in certain games. You know, like 128-98 against Cleveland, against the Lakers when they beat the Lakers. But then they have these bomb games like the one against the Knicks and some other teams that you just kind of go, what the hell? And so...
Well, as far as where they are, I'm not a statistical... I am not as statistically savvy as you three. And I just, as a fan, I watch it as a fan. And I watch a lot of NBA. I like NBA, so I will watch pretty much whatever on TNT or one of the networks. But what I see from the Warriors as growing pains, I see first steps. I see young, exciting players. And you were mentioning when we beat the Lakers. Two things I noticed. The Lakers, when you're watching a broadcast, and this actually went with the Nets, and it went with Cleveland, because I didn't watch it. But what I noticed with the network is they follow, like in the Lakers, followed LeBron, and they follow these players. When the Warriors have the ball, they show everybody because everybody is involved in the offense and the defense. Everybody is involved. Not only that, I got to tell you, and Chris brought this up yesterday while we were driving yesterday to a golfing date, the enjoyment that they display. They just sheer joy in playing with one another, and I think that has a lot to do with the success of a young team. I really, really, honestly believe that. I remember watching the Nets. When it was on the Nets side of the ball, they only showed two players. Guess who they are? Guess who they were? Warriors, they show everybody. They don't sit there and concentrate on Curry. They go to everybody. They show whoever's have the ball, and not only that, the added bonus is it shows the pure joy of them playing with one another.
The thing that you mentioned about the joy that the Warriors play, how it was noticed by I can't remember which sports pundit brought it up, but he's somebody who follows the NBA closely, and he said that was the big difference between the Nets and the Warriors. You have a team like the Nets with Harden and KD and Irvin. And they're struggling. They're almost not better than, I think the Warriors might have a better record than right now. I can't, or it's close. It's very close. They're both right around 500, and they look miserable. They look like they're not having a good time. And with the Warriors with the same almost record, he was saying they are just joyous. They are just having such a good time playing together with each other and learning from each other and gaining momentum in the interim.
And Nets also have DeAndre Jordan, who is a stud.
Oh God, I really had hoped when
wanted
DeAndre Jordan something horrible. I mean, because
I've been telling Steven that for years.
Yeah, you look at one of the stats I was looking at some of the team stats for the team. Their points per game, they're 8th. Rebounds per game, they're 21st. They're horrible. They've
been missing the centers for the last 2 weeks.
Well, but even with the centers, this Wiseman, Looney, they're not rebounders. They're Wiseman. I think Wiseman
learning to be a.
Yeah.
Wiseman could learn to be a rebounder. Looney should be a better rebounder, and some of the other guys like Wiggins should be better rebounders, but they don't work on it. I don't think. I think it's something they really have to focus on and make really a point, because rebounding is defense. As much as defense, stopping a team is great, but if they shoot up after you stopped them and force them into a bad shot, and they get the rebound, you've just kissed away a great defensive stop. And then, of course, right now they are 18th in opponents' points, meaning they rank 18th in the league in the points allowed, which, again, years ago when before they got their championship teams, that was their big deal. Yeah. They could score like crazy, but they always allowed the other team to score just a little bit more. And you can't have that. You have to have a defensive presence to stop.
But there's also in that same vein, you're talking about they still are pretty much leading close to the top in shooting percentage by the opponent.
Yeah.
The only thing is that they're not getting the offensive rebounds, or the defense. The opposing team is getting so many more offensive rebounds, which is leading to more points, more possession, more points. So and that has a lot to do with of course, we were talking about rebounding.
And points, not only getting points, but points inside, because they get those rebounds inside, and they don't have anybody tall enough to do anything with these guys. So these guys get little pump shots, little layups, little jumpers, things like that, slams after the rebounds, because they don't have anybody presence-wise to stop them. And I think the other problem you currently see, the Warriors have been such a team with regards to the 3-point play that it's hard for the players sometimes to realize the 3 points come through motion and not from one guy like Curry running the ball, running down the line, and it's kicking out, but it's also like you have to see, okay, you keep moving and keep going to different positions on the 3-point line. Often you see the Warriors play, and you get these guys that just sit on a spot on the floor as the play goes on, and they were like, okay, I'm here for my 3-pointer, so I'm not going to move until you throw it to me. And it's their offense is about motion, and until they get more time together and they realize that, I think you're going to see the inconsistency. They're not going to get the good looks on the 3-point that they should. They're not going to get the consistency with the 3-point or high percentage 3-pointers that they would normally get. It's just not going to work.
That is absolutely spot on. That is an absolutely spot on analogy. It is, because so many times I have seen, not just the Warriors, I watch the Warriors and I care about the Warriors, so that's why it affects me so much with them. But there's nothing worse than a Warriors getting ahead by 10 to 12 points, and then instead of using up the clock and working for a shot, they run down the field, hit a 3, and the defense gets the rebound, comes back, works the ball, and gets 2 points. And you do that enough, that 10, 12-point lead goes away real quick. Real quick. That always seems to anger me a little bit when I see that happen. And you're right, the motion is everything. The offensive motion is everything. And there are a lot of teams that do it, but I tell you, nobody does it with such more flair, I guess, than the Warriors.
Well, they are still number 3 in assists. I mean, they've always been one of the great assist teams. To average 30 assists in their heyday, they were averaging 30-plus assists in a time where the second-place team was maybe in the 20s.
Yeah,
the low 20s.
Absolutely.
And they were just assist after assist after assist. And again, it all comes from the motion of their team. And when you don't have that, it's just a matter of the hit and miss. And with them, the missing is with no rebounding underneath. They end up, missing, lose the thing, run down. They get a 3 or whatever. Before you know it, like I said, 11-point lead turns into, very quickly.
And this is going off subject a little bit. I want to get back to just a second. We were talking about the Nets, how they played joyless. Well, I'm still boggled by Durant leaving, because he had never been happier than playing on a team that was a team. There was no worry about how many shots he got. He's not a ball hog anyway.
Right.
So he doesn't need. He'd get his 17 shots a game. Curry would get his 17. Thompson would get his 17. Everybody got as many shots as they want, because they do pass the ball. There's no hogging, and to him to play with I thought he played with joy, and now he's playing with a team who is fighting over the ball. Where you have Harden doing his dribble thing, you have the players that he plays for now in the Nets need the ball. Instead of sharing the ball.
Yeah, they like to say that Harden has shown a great, and he is. He's leading in assists, 11.3 assists, and he's shown that he can do that. Irving should be a guy that has that many assists, but he's not, and he's not a great shooter. He's a good shooter. He's not a good clutch shooter.
Finishes at the hoop well.
He's one of the best finishers around the hoop that there can be. But the bottom line is that they don't have any true point guard that just runs the play. It's all these guys are all heavy offensive players that need the ball and want the ball to score as well as whatever. And so it becomes an issue with, it's going to be an issue moving forward. And as far as, people have brought up Katie's return and what it meant. If anybody thought, there's no fans, but if there were fans there, he would have been lauded as a hero that he was. I mean, there were people that were, I think he made some mistakes. KD did as far as what he said. He didn't feel like he was, appreciated enough that he thought it was Curry's team, and it was. Curry was here before he was. So just like, although like Miami, when LeBron and Chris Bosh were there, it went from, it wasn't LeBron's team. It was still Dwayne Wade's team. It's just that LeBron was the main star. And KD, when he came to the Warriors, he was the main star, but it was really still Curry's team because Curry was the one who brought him from nothing to prominence. So I think it's sad that anybody would think that we wouldn't, as basketball fans, intelligent basketball fans that the Bay Area has, would do anything but be happy to see him back in anybody's uniform and hope the best for him.
The only thing, I'm not going to disagree with your Curry's team. I in some ways agree, but when they found their success, Kerr's first year, it was a collection of stars. My goodness, you could go through the list of important impact players that the Warriors had played together, and won a championship. Curry, in my opinion, Curry got the most press because of his impressive 3-point shooting. Well, his impressive shooting, period. But I think that players throughout that little mini dynasty that came and went all had just as important an impact. It's just that the press focused on Curry. As far as KD, I think KD. Let's talk real quick. I'm going to talk real quick about his return. I watched it. Martin and I kind of went back and forth early in the game.
Yeah, early.
But I'll tell you, it wasn't much to see. He played terribly. He was not. He had absolutely no impact on the game itself. And what I saw was him, and along with the other 2-3 stars on that team, not playing as a team, so they didn't win. When he left the Warriors, okay, yeah, he's only human. He's only human. He probably thought, well, I'm not appreciated, like Martin said, or, that's not what it's important. What's important is you contributed, you played as a team. What other people think, what the press thinks, should make absolutely no difference whatsoever. Kevin Durant on the Warriors was a ultimate team player along with the rest of the team. He fit in like a hand in a glove. And that's what made him so special with the Warriors, and was so sad that he left. As far as his reasons, if you want to say he wasn't appreciated, again, he's only human. If he felt that way, I don't think it was right, but I'm not him. So, but teams win championships, not individuals, players, or stars.
And the thing is, that's the way he loved to play. He never got that opportunity in Oklahoma City because he had Westbrook, who demanded the ball, hogged the ball. He gets to the Warriors, and he's like a kid. He's like playing on a playground team. plenty of passing, shooting, everything. I mean, they had fun. You ain't gonna have fun in New Jersey or Brooklyn, I should say.
Yeah, they still have fun, even now as a team that's not as good right now. And
I think they're having fun.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that very impactful that's kind of been pushed aside because it's been going on now for the playoffs, and then now this new season, is that not having fans at the games impacts some teams, I think, more than others. I think a young team like the Warriors need that input more than a veteran team, and I think it costs them a little bit. You need that team, that spirit of a group, and the Warriors have one of the best fan bases to do that. They support their team really strongly and loudly, and they can get a lot more out of a team than other teams do, whose fan bases aren't as fervent.
And without fan base now, there is no such thing as home teams now, because everybody plays in the vacuum of their facility, and there's really no. Because I'm sure if you're a professional in any sport, that the team, the fans really kind of can give you energy that you might not have if they weren't there. And I think that's like a really, really important aspect to today's game. Today's game as it sits right now.
So two more topics I want to go over with the Warriors is, first one will be talking about their bench, the situation that they got going on there. And then after that, we'll talk about if we think Curry, this is a little bit of a last minute thing to bring up, but Curry's shot at MVP, is he someone that's eligible for that? And then I think also Draymond Green, what's going on with him. So with the Warriors bench, I feel like, there's definitely a few decent pieces that they got overall. Pascal, Lee, Wiseman when he comes back, and then outside of that, it's kind of hard to get a lot of production there, because how many times Joey, you said how they have double digits leads and they just fade really quickly. A lot of that is from starting with the end of the first quarter with a good lead, then minutes into the second quarter, it's almost gone because they definitely had a lot of struggle. They struggled a lot scoring in the second quarter. They just couldn't make their threes. They don't have a lot of great 3-point shooters. Even Pascal and Lee. Lee definitely relies more on shooting 3-pointers. Pascal's more of a mid-range or to the hoop guy. Then other than that, it's I don't know, and especially without their centers, it's hard for them to even go to the hoop in the first place. So that restricts their game even more. But I feel like they got to come in with a better game plan. They got to just at least try to get a foul. Just take some simple mid-range shots just to score, because there's some ridiculous runs that
they rely way too much on the 3-point shot.
Well, that game, I can't remember who it was against, but it was before the Cavs, I believe, and they lost. And they had a horrible second quarter, and it was the most threes ever attempted, I think, in a half. Yeah, so that's something they just gotta work on later on. But yes.
Yeah. So a lot of the problems you have in the second group that comes in is the things that I brought up at the very opening, which was with regard to the Warriors, is they have these newer players or players that are 1 year into the system, the Warriors system, and they're still getting used to moving together. Now, in the previous years, when Klay Thompson was in, he would stay on the court with the second group.
That's what Wiggins
and
does.
he would be the mainstay. But Wiggins is only 1 year into their system as well.
Yeah,
I don't think
he's taken Klay Thompson's spot.
Yeah, but see, I don't think he doesn't know the system as well as Klay Thompson.
But he's not as good, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, but he's not as good of anything as Klay Thompson. So you end up having this vacuum when it comes to the second team of, either like you said, players kind of sitting around on the outside. The movement isn't there as well, and then you end up settling for these 3-pointers. I know last year the thing that used to really frustrate me watching the Warriors play is you would have a guy drive in the center, And normally you would have people collapse on him. Well, if you're not Curry and you're not Thompson, they didn't collapse on him, but they thought they would still try to do the same play and pass out. But the guy never left the other guy passing out, and then he'd get a steal and go the other way. And that's part of the thing of the coaching has to be there to say, hey, you can't do this right now. This is what you have to do. If you don't see that guy go, keep going. And the players have to be on that as well. They have to be smart enough not to think, okay, the play says I'm supposed to do this, but if you see something different, then you have to act on it. You have to go to the hoop if you have a chance. You have to not fake the three and then go inside and go and force a foul or force a defensive player to move forward and give it to your big man for an inside play, which you don't see that enough. You just see guys settling for the three, no offensive rebounding, and then they lose the opportunity. It goes the other way and the team scores. So, it's going to be a problem, I think, until you get a little more consistency and a little more time in the system for them to learn.
And so after this, so what do you guys think about Curry? How he's been doing this season. Do you think he is at all worthy of getting some MVP consideration? Because looking at his stats compared to some of his two MVP years, they're not too far apart. To be completely honest, he's averaging 30 points a game. That's something that's really hard to do in general. And he's been the reason why he's been carrying them this whole year.
I think that Curry should have been MVP every year he wasn't during the Warrior championship run. Unfortunately, it's a political thing. The West Coast gets no consideration whatsoever. Well, they will now because LeBron happened to come to the West Coast. But when LeBron was with Cleveland and Miami and nobody on not even Curry, but nobody on the West Coast got consideration for MVP. Very little. So
that tells you how good he was.
I think that Curry, not only this year, not last year, obviously, maybe not even the year before, but every year, at least 3 years prior, has deserved the MVP every year. He's not only for his shooting, but for his court generalship. Amazing.
He's Curry's had great years, and this year's just another one. He's at just over 30 points a game. But I get upset because the league in general doesn't give him enough credit for his defense. And he always is probably top 10 in steals. And he's a decent rebounder for a guard.
Oh, he's a great rebounder.
And the thing about it is that he plays defense within their scheme better than just about any Warrior there is. He might not be a great one-on-one defender, but he's not asked to be. Nope, none of the Warriors are asked to be, except for maybe Klay Thompson when he was out there by himself. They would put Klay Thompson on the toughest guy and maybe say, stop him. But everybody else it's all about team defense. And he's one of the best team defense players. If you watch him play, team defensive wise, you'll see a guy come in and he'll make a switch. He'll make that switch clean, no problem at all. He'll stop a player from getting a clean look at a three because he makes that switch so clean. Or he gets on the guy before the guy has a chance to go down the lane and get a clean look at the rim. And so I just don't think there's a wide enough appreciation for all the things that he does. And because of that, it's all about how good he is offensively and how his three-point shooting is and everything else. And he's a weak sister on the defensive end. And that always bothers me. I think he's much stronger defensively, especially in the team defense that the Warriors run, than anybody gives him credit for.
Well, I got to tell you, Curry this year, you guys have seen him as well. How many times have you made shots where you're just like, oh,
yeah,
holy
amazing.
crap.
Amazing. That behind his head twirling layup.
3-point shots with 2 guys in his face. One thing I have noticed what he's done more lately is turn the ball over more and dribbling into traffic and losing the ball. Before he was dribbling into traffic and getting somehow maintaining control of the ball on the shot. But this year he seems to get more blocks. He's gotten his shot blocked more this year, and he's lost the ball more this year.
Well, I think that comes into play only because they don't have the outlets that he had before. Like when he had Klay Thompson there, again, he would dribble in, and the guy guarding Klay Thompson wasn't as willing to go off of Klay to go, double up on Curry in the lane, because he knew that Klay would be out there free and Curry would get him the ball. So having Thompson out of there impacts Curry just so much. I mean, so much more than people realize, because he doesn't have the necessary outlets to go to offensively and to have people respect that outside shooter that Klay Thompson was.
And to add to that, Curry, being the court general that he is, that is what making this season so exciting, because we know these young players are going to get with the program as this year goes by. And I think those outlets you're talking about, they will reemerge with these different players. I honestly believe that.
Well, it's already showing. There's already articles out there about how Draymond Green and Curry are starting to find their mojo again with the passing that they did before and the movement that they had before. It's just going to be getting the other players to buy into the unselfish way that the Warriors play.
Absolutely.
It was always unselfish play was always the biggest thing about the Warriors in their championship run. It was never about, we have to get the ball to Curry. We have to get unless Thompson or Curry or somebody was on a hot streak, and then they would make sure that person was fed to keep that hot streak alive, which doesn't always happen with teams. The other teams often will say, well, that guy's, he'd hit this guy would hit 4 in a row, and then he wouldn't have another shot for a half. Well, you don't see that with the Warriors. If you got a guy who's on a hot streak, they feed him the ball.
Sure.
And they make sure he gets the ball, and the other players don't care if they score another point at all, as long as somebody's scoring and that guy is hot.
I remember a game a couple of years ago when they were talking about that very thing. They were talking about it was toward the end of the game, and who was Dick Barnett's Fitzgerald? Bob Fitzgerald. Bob Fitzgerald is saying, just in broadcast speak, getting close. Who do you think the ball is going to go to? And then Dick Barnett said, well, it'll go to anybody that's hot. And it was so cool because they were playing such a great game, and it was true. The Warriors are not selfish. A ball doesn't have to go to this person. It doesn't have to go to that person. They're going to give it to the person that they feel is going to win the game.
And one of the things when you were mentioning about Curry and his oh my God shots that he has, those aren't only oh my God shots for the team. The NBA looks at those shots. Those are shots that NBA looks at. They were
highlight reels on ESPN.
That the other players look at and go, oh my God. And when you have other players looking at you, like LeBron and Irvin and KD looking at a shot and just saying, that's just Curry being Curry.
Yeah,
how respectful is that? That's just him. The guy shoots a 37-footer or a half-court shot and puts it in, and they're saying that's Curry being Curry. That's like, it's almost boring.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's like, who else does it?
Yeah.
Nobody.
That hash mark, I don't know how far that is from the basket, but we watched them the other night from the hash mark.
Yeah.
Well, you have to realize, though, he practices all these shots.
Oh, yeah.
The half-court shot, he practices that. He'll throw up 50 half-court shots before the game starts.
Yeah.
The hashtag shot, he does that shot. The crazy layups, he'll try that. It's just almost like a Tiger Woods type of thing when he was in his heyday. He would make some kind of amazing shot from the rough. That's because he's practiced that shot before. So Curry, he puts the time into his game.
Yeah. No, he's definitely a guy who's one of the hardest working guys in the NBA. He really is, and I don't think he gets enough. People are such haters on Curry, and it's really frustrating. The fans appreciate it, which is nice because they love him. I mean, he's godsend for the NBA. He's such a good guy. He's clean family life, clean everything. He's a great guy. He's a giver back to the community. He does everything right. And I think the other players are a hater for that because he is such a clean guy. No, hardly any. I don't know if he has a tattoo, which is in the NBA is almost impossible that he.
What do you think, Steve?
No, I totally agree. In regards to Curry, like he is a guy that gets way too much hate, and it's so sad that he gets hated on as much as he does, despite being the only ever unanimous MVP. Like it's just like how.
You see, great players we've had that haven't got unanimous MVP.
Well, that's kind of a. I mean, it's nice that he got it, but there were other players in the NBA that should have got it, and they didn't. And that's other sports writers hating on them. I think it's the fact that he did get it is a more testament for the quality of his character than as much as it is for the quality of his game. Michael Jordan should have got. I mean, saying Michael Jordan shouldn't have got a unanimous MVP, or Wilt Chamberlain shouldn't have got a unanimous MVP, or Bird or Magic shouldn't have got. I mean, one of those players should have got it, but there was always somebody who didn't like him.
Yeah.
Maybe the Boston writer didn't want to give it to Magic, or the LA writer didn't want to give it to Bird, or whatever. And Curry, if nothing else, is such a good guy. I think even the sports writers know that, if he deserved it, which he did, he changed. I mean, he literally changed the game. It wasn't just a matter of him making three-pointers and saying, oh, well, he's a good three-point shooter. No, he made the game a three-point game instead of a two-point game. He changed the style that people play the game now, and that's huge.
Well, last week's episode, we talked about Wilt Chamberlain a little bit, about how he changed the game pretty much the way Curry has. And some of the stats that Wilt had, I mean, you've heard how big of a triple-double is? Well, he had a quintuple double, where he had
steals,
blocks, points, assists, and rebounds.
Yeah.
And that's never even come close to being done.
Well, look at his average. That 1 year, he averaged 50 points and 25 rebounds a game.
Yeah. So
that's insane.
Yeah. And to say that the players, the players are so much better now. Well, you know what? It's all relative. You had a talent level in the 50s. You had a talent level in the 70s. You had a talent level in the 90s.
Yeah.
It's all relative.
Well,
you lived in your era and you dominated everyone in your era, as it will go on into perpetuity. That's the way it is. I don't like the idea of the GOAT. I don't, because you can never decide. You can never say in history this guy's the best, because he didn't play
at that time.
Or in, you know what I'm saying, in future time. So yeah.
Well, the style of play. I mean, that comes in the GOAT thing. Just drives me nuts.
It really does. It does. I hate it.
Back in the day, you had hand checking. You had all these things that, defensive play, offensive play has always been the key to all leagues, and it's gotten easier and easier in every facet. Football, basketball, baseball. Everything favors offensive play. Mm-hmm. They lowered the mounds because pitchers were dominant during the Gibson era. Gibson was so dominant and with his strikeouts, and other pitchers were so dominant. They said, you know what? We're going to lower the mounds, make it so they can't throw those high speed pitches. Chamberlain was so dominant, they said, we're going to widen the lane so that he can't get every stinking rebound that's anywhere near him. I mean, when the lane was narrow, the lane used to be as wide as the backboard. And so he could get literally almost reach across the other side and grab a rebound. So, I mean, these guys that changed the game, and you look at even Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods, great player. What did they do? He's dominating the Masters. let's lengthen the course.
Change
Let's make it
courses.
longer.
Exactly.
They change courses. They change whatever. So these players, Curry hasn't had a rule changed to make him, but he has changed the way the game is played.
Not only with the players in the league and the players coming up from college, but the kids on the basketball courts all around the country. Some of them who never would have even thought of shooting a three-pointer, now they're practicing a three-pointer because Stephen Curry does it.
Well, he's definitely more of an
That's
everyman.
how deep ingrained his change is.
And now one more topic for the Warriors, because I do to help out with this one here. It's going over what happened with Draymond Green recently in a press conference.
Yeah. So what happened was they were talking about the situations with what he talked about was situations between rights of players have over rights owners have, and how a player decides he's going to he wants to demand a trade, like Harden did. Harden says, I want to get out of here. I don't want to play in Houston anymore. And they what did they do? They dogged him. They said, "Oh, he's dogging it out there. He's not playing well for Houston." I mean, some players do that. Ronnie Cycli, I remember with the Warriors did that. That guy I remember.
Yeah.
Clifford Ray did that, sitting out in the playoffs
That
that
was
one year. Just shameful. But the thing is, what Draymond says is when a player wants to move, they're vilified. They're said, hey, you shouldn't move. You should have honor. You should honor your contract. You should stay with the team that brought you up. You stay with the team that got you here and everything else. But when an owner decides they want to get rid of a player, they put it out there and say, hey, we're shopping this player around. And the idea, what Draymond was saying is, they talk about mentally how hard it is to deal with stuff. The owners say, well, it's really hard mentally, when the players decide they're going to move forward. But again, you don't get the idea that isn't it hard for a player to deal with the fact that they're being talked about every single day that they're going to get traded? Yes. And somewhere the players have to be able to get better rights as far as that goes. Not be vilified as much, not be taken advantage of as much. Maybe work it out where something with the owners that if they're in for the trade that it doesn't get leaked or whatever else.
Well,
I don't know if that can happen, but that was the gist of what he was saying.
I don't think as much the owners as the GM making the decisions. But as far as that goes, my view is gives a crap what the players think. Okay, it's a business. Okay, if they're shopping you around, they're shopping you around. If they can get a better player, go for it. I know that's not the consensus opinion here, but I'm sorry, they're getting paid millions of dollars. If they don't like it, get into another field.
Why,
I think that Draymond should probably know better because he has been in the league. He should know that it's strictly business.
But I would say, why would you not think it's the consensus among the people here? I don't agree with Draymond necessarily. I think there are some aspects of shopping a player around that mentally would be wearing on a player. But you know what? When a player, like I said, I've seen enough players locally in the Bay Area that decided they didn't want to be with the team anymore, and they did nothing. Antonio Brown, Randy Moss, Ronnie Cycli. These players decided they wanted to move forward, and they dogged it.
Teams be
They
damned.
just said, to hell with it. I'm not going to play for this team because I want to move. And that's absolutely wrong. It's it's the worst thing you can do.
Yeah.
So I don't agree. I think you are a professional. You put yourself out there. You keep yourself in shape. You get yourself ready. And if they're going to trade you, I'm sorry, in some ways you are, I don't want to say a piece of their property because that would be wrong, but you are a person on their team that they are paying currently, that they have the rights to you, and they can go ahead and move you if they find a better situation to make the team better.
Yeah. Well, look at Monte Ellis. I mean, he when they got Curry, and they were deciding about he cut his own throat basically by saying, "I can't play with Curry. There's no way we're going to play in the same backcourt," which basically forced them to change the outlook of what was going on with the team, and they went for Bogut. Next thing you know, the guy who said he couldn't play with the young up-and-comer says, can't do it, he's gone. And look what happens.
Yeah, well, they were looking. I mean, at the time when Monte Ellis came in and Curry came in as a secondary, they were looking at Curry to take over the team, and he was going to be the face of the franchise. And Monte Ellis didn't like that. He wanted to be the star, and so when he moved on, he did. He became the star on the team that he was on. He scored lots of points and everything else. But you know what? His team stunk.
Yeah,
that was the thing.
That's the epitome of stars against teams. I was naive enough to think when Curry joined the Warriors that Monte Ellis and Curry were going to be the twin towers of the guard position.
Yeah,
I honestly did. I was that naive. And then, of course, before I knew
it,
it,
naivety.
well, it is kind of, because I still didn't get it that there were players that me, not us as a team.
Yeah. Yeah, but just look how that changed the face of the franchise, too.
Yeah.
What if we had kept Monte Ellis and Curry? They could have won a lot of games, but they wouldn't have won championships.
Well, as for Thompson, what if they traded him to the Timberwolves, as they once discussed after 2014?
Yeah, they were going to trade both Curry and Thompson.
No, I think it was just Thompson.
No, it was Thompson.
Thompson for Love.
Yeah, for Kevin Love.
His
yeah,
father went on one of the local stations and said, if this trade goes through, it was for Kevin Love, I believe.
Yeah, it was.
If this trade goes through, I'm going to have to talk my son off the roof.
Yeah,
that was his father. Great. Yeah, I remember.
And I talked to Steven. Remember, I said do the trade.
Yeah,
I told him. I said the Warriors should do that trade because they needed a big man to score, and he averaged double digit points and rebounds.
Yeah, he was a double guy for a long time.
So there's no need. You don't know how that would have turned out.
Well, in a way,
but
in some way you do, because of what came after. He went to Cleveland, and he really didn't do anything.
Well,
but he would have been under a different regime. Obviously, he would have been a better player with Curry than he would have been with Irving
I can't even imagine,
and LeBron.
Yeah. Yeah, because they would have been passing. He would have got so many setups for dunks
for 3-pointers.
Actually, to get back to the subject,
he's a horrible defensive player.
To get back to the subject of Draymond Green, and just away from his press conference, I don't think his head. I talked about this with Martin a couple of games ago. It seems like he's distracted.
Well, he's going for stats instead of just playing, letting the game go to him. He's had so many games in a row where he has 10 plus assists. So now he's just sticking and passing the ball. Dude, if you're open from 18 feet, shoot the 18-footer instead of just trying to throw the ball, force the ball into for that extra assist.
And he's losing the ball too. He's turning it over too.
He's always had a problem with trying to make sometimes an impossible passes, but he does have a tendency to. He needs to really focus. He needs to be like a Rodman. Rodman didn't worry about scoring because he had scoring. The Bulls had scoring. He focused on rebounding, which they needed, and he focused on assists, which they needed to feed Pippen and feed Jordan. And I think that's what Green needs to do. He needs to focus on what he is good at. But like Martin said, he can't shy away from the times when he is clear and wide open, because the more he does that, then you allow the defense to collapse in, and it closes the inside. It closes the inside and it closes the outside.
And it allows them to double team Curry or whoever is hot at the time.
Yeah. So
very good.
All right, so I think that will be it for our Warriors talk. Now we're going to move on to the Raiders. So we're basically just going to try to do a bit of recap of the season, what we think about how things went in 2020. It's something that I plan on doing for a little bit when the season ended. And well, a basic way to sum it up is that it was definitely like full of promise, especially the first maybe 3 quarters of the season, and then just like last year, a big collapse ended up kind of overshadowing whatever they accomplished.
Yeah.
The team had a pretty good offense, top 10 overall. They were really good in the first half, but in the second half of the year, it just like slowly collapsed, and like it's just like they were unable to score in the red zone. The running game got worse. The Carr was turning the ball over more, and then there's the defense, which they stayed as bad as they were.
All year long. Shitty.
The thing it goes back to maybe Gruden being a coach that he doesn't make the adjustments that he needs to.
Exactly. You were talking about adjustments between coaches, and I really kept thinking
just doesn't do it. I mean, you look at the Raiders' offense; they became a great controlled offense this year. I mean, they were early in the year. They would 10, 12, 15, 16 plays. I mean, they were so good at just controlling the ball, and I kept thinking, wow, if they can do this, and they won a couple games early because for the first time in
against good teams,
any memory that I have, they were able to control the ball in the fourth quarter.
And I think they also became more explosive.
And they came out in close games, and they were able to, the last 4 minutes of a game, they were able to hold the ball by running the ball, passing the ball, whatever. But as soon as teams caught on to what they were doing, they never changed. And so before you knew it, instead of having, and of course they did have offensive line problems. They had COVID problems. They had offensive line problems. But everybody had them. But theirs were like catastrophic in some ways because their offensive line is the only thing that protects Carr.
And the running back.
And I say only thing. Like Carr, like Goff and a couple other quarterbacks in the NFL, he doesn't have protection. He's done because he doesn't move around. He doesn't move the pocket well. He doesn't run out of the pocket. He doesn't feel pressure like other quarterbacks do. And it's really frustrating to watch as the year went forward. As they started having problems with their offensive line and stuff like that they just floundered. They went to a ball control offense that was holding the ball for a long time to 3 and outs. And the defense was defense with their capabilities with nobody on their line to do any sacks. I didn't think their safeties and their defensive backfield was all that bad.
They had one?
No,
I agree with you.
I really don't. They had maybe one guy that would be not good on the long ball, but the bottom line is every team has that. But other teams have a defensive line, and they put pressure on the quarterback, and you make them throw the ball. And the Raiders never made teams throw the ball. They would allow the quarterback to sit back there and get comfortable and look around and say, oh, okay, here you go, long bomb, boom. And it was so frustrating, especially on third and
the third and longs were ridiculous. It's like I could never have faith in a third and long. It's like nothing was ever that easy. I felt more comfortable with the 3rd and 1 than 3rd and 10, honestly. Because 3rd and 1, they were decent at stopping the run every now and then. But 3rd and 10, someone's going to screw up their assignment. And I agree with what you say with that. The defensive backs, I don't think were too bad. Eric Harris had a big drop off from the way he was last year. I think that was him being given the role of captain. That was probably too much on him. Abram, he had his moments, but he also played like a knucklehead every now and then, completely whiffing on a tackle or getting unnecessary penalties. But when it came to the passing game, it's the thing is the way he plays. He plays box safety, which means you're much closer to the line of scrimmage, and you're going to be there for the run game and short passes. That's what his role is, and yet the coordinators, they would put him at high safety, playing more pass coverage when that wasn't his thing. It's I know you don't want to shelter players. If this is the only thing they're comfortable with, you should only play him here. It's no, they should learn to adjust. But you also don't put them in their worst situations consistently. Trayvon Mullen, he's the best corner for the Raiders this year, and I think he's a pretty decent defensive player in general, but he is not good in zone coverage, and while that's something he should work on, Gunther would constantly put him in zone coverage, knowing that press was his main thing.
Gunther, that's who?
Paul Gunther, the defensive coordinator, fired him
The
last season.
ex-defensive coordinator?
He should have been fired after 2018. He was
Well,
just...
You know,
Well, that's another decision, Sarge. That's another decision on Gruden.
Yeah.
He had him. I don't know if they were what connection there was between the two gentlemen, but he he lasted 2 years too long.
Yeah, and when you talk about like Mullen, who, like I said, is a good bump and run cover guy, and possibly the one of their best cover people, and generally, again, other teams that you look at, good defensive coordinators, they put their best cover men on the best offensive player. And the Raiders never did that. They would just, and so then you have their worst cover guy going out there, and everybody knew it. The announcers on the TV would go, well,
They're picking on him.
They're picking on him, and yet they would allow it to happen over and over again.
And so I just thought of two big examples. I remember this year against the Buffalo Bills, it was a third down, and they put Keyshawn Nixon on Stephon Diggs. It's like, who? A backup corner on Diggs? And it's 3rd and 4, I believe. And the way the play set up, Nixon is already giving a 10-yard cushion. It's like, it's only 5 yards he has to go. All he has to do is just do a 5-yard hitch. And that's what happened. Keyshawn Nixon is constantly going back, waiting for him to come to him. But Diggs just stops. He's like, okay, I'll just take it from here. Like, you're going to give me the cushion. And that's on Gunther. Like, I know, player skill has a lot to do with how well they do. But if you're not putting them in a good position, how do you expect them to do well? And then last year, when we played the Texans, there's multiple plays, especially down to the final stretch, where Tahir Whitehead, the worst linebacker in pass coverage that year, that's not an exaggeration. He was graded last out of every linebacker in pass coverage. They put him against DeAndre Hopkins consistently in the fourth quarter. It's like, what are you? It's like,
yeah, their decisions, and this is where it comes into coaching. I mean, you have to be able to see that kind of stuff. You can't stay with what you think works and not change it at half, change it at second quarter, change it whenever to make things work. And one of the things that you talk about stats, and I have all sorts of stats here for the Raiders. But you look at the stats, and it's easy to, when you talk about Carr and people make the thing, well, Carr is, their offense is number 2. They were in the top 10 for offense. But when you look at scoring, they were 30th.
is it like
So
score percentage?
No, scoring in general. How many points they scored? They were 30th in scoring in the NFL.
Wait, that might have been defensive scoring, I think, because when it comes to total points, they were number 10.
They were total offense. They were number 10. So every facet of their offense, passing, scoring, number 10. But scoring on its own, they were 30th. And rushing 14th, passing 7th, fourth down conversion 9th. Those are all decent things, but again, the bottom thing is scoring. It doesn't matter if you can move the ball like crazy up and down the field if you're not scoring. And then on defensive wise, you look on the other side, they gave up on an average series. The average series against them, a team scored 2.7 points. So on every series, every series that was run against the Raiders, there was a good chance a team was going to score at least a field goal. And that's just ridiculous. I mean, that
ridiculous.
And
ridiculous.
One point I want to make is I don't want to make excuses, especially for the offense, because the offense did play a role in the collapse that they had. They weren't as effective as they were. Like I said, Carr turned the ball over more, and other people did turn the ball over too. There was a decent amount of fumbles on everyone, especially Carr. But the red zone decision making that they had, they would get to the 5-yard line, and then it's like, okay, now let's run it up to Witten because they're going to be scared of him. Why not Darren Waller, your best target? Why not do an end around to Henry Ruggs or a slant route to Hunter Renfrow or Foster Moreau.
You mean something with imagination?
Moreau had I think 200. Moreau didn't have a lot of yards last year, but he had 5 touchdowns. He was a red zone machine until he tore his ACL, and then he came back healthy. And Witten was getting all the snaps over him, even though whenever Moreau played, he still got 2 touchdowns and all that. But he was such a good red zone target. It's why would you throw that away? And that's one thing that's going to be key for them is they have to give him much more targets in the red zone.
I have to mention this is I do not possess the statistical prowess that young Steven, Chris, and Martin. Yeah, you do. But strictly as a spectator of the Raiders now, I got to ask you guys. Gruden was a golden boy, won a Super Bowl, brought the Raiders long ago from and now I look at him as a lot heavier. He's older, and he just doesn't seem to have it.
He's a liability.
He's tired. I think
I don't hear anything about it though.
No, no, you don't hear about it because he was in the press for a while, and I think the press they're the ones that control that kind of stuff for the most part. But if you're a fan or whatever else, you can look and realize that what Gruden's doing is not imaginative anymore. I mean, you look at all the other coaches. Kyle Shanahan for the Niners, and you look at
Andy Reid. Andy
Reid is an older coach that everybody thought, well, he does the same offense,
but he doesn't.
But he doesn't. He's some of the stuff that he comes up with for plays and stuff like that, so creative. I mean,
yeah.
It would help to have Mahomes too. Yeah.
Well, no, but but even with the weapons, you still got to use them correctly.
Alex Smith, he did well with Alex Smith.
Yeah.
Like look at the Browns. They had such a talented roster, but they had Freddie Kitchens as a coach, and look at what happened. They sucked. But then once they got Stefanski, just in 1 year, they became a legitimate team. I don't think a Super Bowl team, but a good team overall. But with Andy Reid, one perfect example of how he's willing to adjust to the game is when the Raiders first beat the Chiefs in Week 5. One thing the Raiders were able to do was that they were able to run the clock more.
Well, they ran the ball. They
ran the ball.
They ran it down their throat and
the Chiefs made the mistake of passing too much. They were doing well running the ball, but they didn't. They just chose not to. They kept trying to kept going over all these deep passes, and they just weren't there. Their offense wasn't clicking in the second half of that game. And that's what led to the Raiders doing. But what did they do when they played each other again on Sunday Night Football? They ran the ball more. They had longer drives. They kept the ball out of the Raiders' hands. Because Carr and the offense, that was one of the best games I've ever seen Carr play. Even though they lost, that was a great game that they had. Carr was making some ridiculous throws, and his receivers were open everywhere. They were doing whatever they wanted. Both offenses were. But the Chiefs made sure that they got the ball last. They got the last say in it.
That was
of course, it helps when Abram ditches his guy in the end zone and Kelsey wide open.
Yeah. Well, when you look at again, with as far as Renfrow was another guy that when you talk about guys that they just don't use enough, I don't think Renfrow is like Edelman. That's who he reminds me of. He's like an Edelman. When they need a guy on third down, they need a reception on third. Yeah, when you get a guy third down play or a down play, Renfro's the guy they look to go to, I think, and they don't use those guys enough. I think they get in the thing of, well, we'll use the big guy who can block off the safety or the cornerback and block him off and get in front of him and make that pass or get up high and get it above him. When there's no imagination, it's always the same kind of play. It's almost like you can call, if there's any team that I could name the plays that are going to happen when they're down near the inside the 5, it's the Raiders. And there's other teams that you could never do that. And then again, with as far as their defense goes, they were ranked 4th in sacks. They were middle of the pack in tackles for losses.
Wait, you mean fourth as in like bottom four in sacks?
No,
Yeah,
bottom
they-
four. They were bottom 4 in sacks.
Okay, yeah.
They had 21 sacks. The average was 28 in the league. They had 21.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't do anything if you don't press the quarterback, if you don't sack the quarterback. You have to make them hurry. You have to make them uncomfortable back there. And the Raiders were never able to do it. And when they pressed or ran a blitz, it almost became worse. Because then the weaknesses in the backfield that they did have became glaring for the quarterback.
Exactly.
And they keep the guy running backs in, make the necessary block, and the guy would have his pickings on the
Or the guy
on
would
his
just throw a screen.
receivers.
Like the blitz comes in, like everyone comes in, and he's like, okay, let me just throw a screen, and then the guy's just gonna run the other 15 yards for just enough for a first down. And like I said, like the offense played their role. We talk about Gruden's predictability led to the Raiders' demise at the end of the year. But you got to consider that defense too. Like he put too much faith in that defense as well. Like how many times did it look like they're in the red zone? It's like, okay, they got to go for it on fourth down here because like the way the other team's offense is doing, like the Colts game or Tampa Bay, it's like you got to go for a touchdown here. You cannot give them the ball with just getting 3 points, and yet it's like, okay, yeah, let's just take the field goal. It's like, no, you need to score more. Like you're acting like our defense is like middle of the pack or better, but it's bottom of the league. Don't act like they're good. And one stat about the Raiders that's interesting is that no team has ever been 500 or better, allowing 27 or more points a game until the Raiders got 8-8. So I'm not saying like that's like an incredible feat, but that just shows.
You're talking about reaching, man. I'm reaching for something. Something's got to be. They're the only team.
This is a Raider fan.
Yeah, but that's not what I'm trying to say.
I know, dude.
It's just that like you got to realize that a defense like that you can't win with, and of course the offense they chimed in on that too, by turning the ball over more often. That has to.
Their plus minus on turnovers was minus 11, which is abysmal. I mean, most of the time it's low single digits is bad, and they were
barely above that.
They were high double digits in the negative. I mean, you want to be plus 0 or plus to have any chance of winning games in the number that you need, and they were minus 11.
And there's something the Raiders didn't have on defense. It's like, cause you could have a mostly bad defense, but you just have to have someone who's a playmaker, and they did not have anyone there who you can say they will wreck the game. They don't have a Khalil Mack. They don't have anyone that can wreck the game like he used to, or even anything close. There's no one you can rely on to like say like. Because like that was the thing with 2016 is the defense they still weren't really good that year, but they got turnovers. They were plus 16 that year. They were able to make plays when it counted the most.
Well, I knew Gruden was going to be a screwed up coach as soon as he got here. When one of the key things you got to do is sign Mac, and he didn't even bother talking to him. He didn't return his call. So
I really think I really think Gruden was trying to do a Herschel Walker type deal with Mac and get all these picks and be able to be the guy who brings all these draft picks in and starts his young great team and everything else. That's his team. But the silliest thing that ever came out of the Mac trade was the very end of the year, that first year that Mac was out. Gruden was saying, what we needed this year was a pass rusher.
Right.
And you just want to say,
you idiot!
How can you say something so stupid? You just crapped away the one player that gave you exactly what you're saying you needed and have needed since.
Yep.
And what draft picks have you made? I mean, if you trade a great player and get draft picks, you better be damn sure there's players that are so good, and there is no guarantee. Like Mac was a guarantee. Mac was a stud, And you just don't trade a stud for guys that might be good or players you might get. Even if you get 10 players for him in the draft, it doesn't matter because those 10 players could all crash they could all crash and burn, and you have one guy that's a Pro Bowl superstar, and you're getting rid of him. It was just it was unfathomable. I couldn't believe it.
Well, how long do we have to suffer Gruden?
Another 7
He's got
years.
maybe unless they make enough. If Allegiant opens to the public and they start drawing, which they will, they'll draw people in there because Raider fans, for the most part, they'll show up and they'll make it a full stadium. Because also the tourists that go out to there, they'll have full stadiums and they'll get a lot of corporate people in there and they'll host a Super Bowl. Because that's what they do. NFL will always give new stadiums a Super Bowl to show off their thing, and it'll be in Vegas, which will be all
with as many
wonderful.
Casinos, hotels, and hospitality situations. You would think that would sell out a third of that place on a yearly basis.
Yeah, but see, the whole thing with the Raiders going to Vegas is there's going to be no such thing as home field advantage because every single home game they have, half of the opposing team will have fans going to the game because that will be the game of the year to go to.
Yeah.
They're going to invest. Who wouldn't want to go to Vegas to see your team play?
Yeah.
So while the Raiders will be technically a home game, it's not going to have a home team field.
Yeah.
I think half is a bit of a stretch of it, but definitely it's going to be so much harder to have a home field advantage.
And as far as the casinos getting the tickets, put it this way: if you're gambling and you're on a roll, you're going to want to go to the game. I think there could be a surprising amount of empty seats because people are either be hungover or on a hot streak or going, oh hell, you give the tickets away to somebody, or the tickets just won't get used. Okay, I think that
I don't
necessarily
agree.
agree.
was such a mistake.
I don't agree.
necessarily agree with that.
I think it will have above marginal capacity. Above marginal. I really do.
I think they will probably sell out because there's a
They'll sell out.
there's a good
Guaranteed they'll
portion.
sell out.
There's a good huge portion of the Raider fans that will travel because they travel. Hell, they travel to New York. They travel all over. Raider fans are everywhere, and
They're rabid.
They're rabid fans, and the black hole will be the black hole in Vegas when it comes in.
There'll be at least 1,000 empty seats
Yeah.
every game.
Well,
Shit.
That
57,000, 60,000, that's really not
That's
that
not,
bad.
and that's even bigger.
1,000 seats is a lot of seats.
Actually, I think that
What do we hold?
it's
What do you
bigger.
hold
It's
there?
bigger. Alliant,
Yeah.
I think it's 70.
Yeah. So, yeah. I
think
think they could
70 is
probably
the-
spare that many.
I think,
if
you
you
know-
just spread all those seats around, then you won't even notice it.
And the
I'll notice it in my heart.
and
My
the
heart
corp-
will notice it.
and the corporate money they'll get for
Yeah, they
corporate wanting to go watch games and buy a box and stuff like that. Mark Davis is going to make out really well with this.
That was a given. That's why he went
But
there.
the bottom line is it's
I have to say, for the podcast, I am no longer a Raider fan. I watch the Raiders. I wish for their success, but I saw them leave the first time, and I stayed with them. And I think that this time I just can't. Again, I will support them, but I'm not going to certainly go out and buy a T-shirt anytime soon.
And Steven was a recipient of some of your giveaways.
Well, you know what? Because he's a wonderful nephew, and
He's
couldn't have
okay.
been happier for
I
doing
mean,
it.
he's okay as a son. I don't know how he is a nephew.
He's all right.
I can honestly say as well, I'm not a Raider fan anymore. I mean, I will watch the games, but it was a Raider loss was a weekend ruiner
A
for
whole
me.
week
and,
ruined.
and I just felt horrible. But I just don't do it anymore. I mean, they win, they lose. I'm like, okay, great. I'm much more enthusiastic about other teams that have local talent like Green Bay with Aaron Rodgers
Go Bears.
and stuff like that than I am about the Raiders anymore.
Yeah.
It's sad that
agree.
it's come to that because I'm we're all Oakland born, and
Born
except for
and raised.
Steven.
And
And we were all huge giant Raider fans.
Actually, Steve was born in Alta Bates.
Wait, what?
You were born in Alta Bates.
I thought I was born in San Diego. Okay.
I
think that the fan base, unfortunately, you know what? The A's deserve so much more fan base than they got. What they had was rabid, but my goodness, years and years, championship or no, they did not ever have really a good attendance, and that was really sad. I remember when they got their first million fans, and it's just like totally big deal. Now it's like 3 million on most stadiums is a normal commonplace. But my God, the fan base for the Warriors and the Raiders, thick and thin, bad or good, it was rabid. They sold out every single game, and it was just amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, what talk about fans and all that. So there's something that happened last week was this guy Pat McAfee. He's a really popular guy, because he played punter for the Colts.
What's your name?
Pat McAfee.
Okay.
And he was a pretty popular guy because he was a guy that you could put a mic on and he'd be entertaining and all that. And he has his own show now, not on ESPN or anything. It's not on a channel, just on YouTube and all that. And he it's all with his friends, and they all have a bit of a jockey attitude. You could tell, they're just guys really just screwing around. And after Carr got hurt against the Chargers, and so on McAfee's show, they're kind of he's going to be a journeyman from here on out. He's going to be a backup for at least another 1 or 2 years. And then to now, rumors are the Colts might try to get Carr, and he talks about how he'd be okay with that. I think saying he'd be, pretty decent for the Colts. And then Raiders B called him out on that because it's kind of it's a two-faced thing because one, he's just after one game of him not being able to play due to injury, it's that's it for him as a starter now. But then once he's mentioned as a potential starter for the Colts, that's okay. And so he gets really mad about it. And he calls them out and says you guys effing suck. I don't.
What?
I'm not gonna say it.
Why not?
I'm just not going to.
Okay. I'll pay you.
No.
Okay.
But he says you guys suck, and it's because of guys like you that I refuse to talk about the Raiders because y'all don't effing matter. And he says that being said, I do like Waller, and I just thought and I think my main thing is I think McAfee is I don't know if that's what he really from the bottom of his heart means, but he's gonna do what he can to make it sound exciting.
Well, of course, he's a
man.
They become the shock jocks. He's building an audience, so he's got the more flamboyant, the more things that go that he can make people angry at and call in, and then he can say whatever he wants with regard to that. But bottom line is, like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if Derek Carr moved, and I don't like Derek Carr as much as I like some other quarterbacks. If they got somebody else, I'd be interested to see. And I was happy with Mariota. Mariota played relatively well. He's not the kind of answer either, I don't think. But he was somebody who was, I thought, a little more serviceable than Carr because he could move. Yeah. And he did throw good passes. And with a decent line, their line wasn't decent, but their line wasn't great, but it was decent. He knew to move the pocket. He knew to run when he had to, and that's something that Carr cannot do. So you need the best line there was, and when Carr was at his best, it was when their line was the best. And if he doesn't have that top tier line, he's a journeyman quarterback. He's not a great quarterback. He just isn't.
Who is the team that Mariota played against? That start?
Tennessee. And he lost to Tannehill eventually. And that's my main problem is that I feel like when it comes to different quarterbacks, pocket passers, like Brady, Carr. Rodgers is more of a pocket guy. I still feel even though he can scramble.
He has great footwork.
Yeah.
Which enables him to get by a rushing lineman or whatever.
And Stafford, those are pocket guys. And Goff too. Then you got people who scramble on, I don't know what exactly you call them, but guys who can scramble on, Wilson, Jackson, Allen,
Mahomes,
Watson. Oh, even Mahomes too, though. He's more a little bit Aaron Rodgers. Like, he runs when he needs to more. You know, he won't like insist on it too much, but he'll do it when he has to.
well, he went through the Steve Young thing where he was, some of these guys come in as a lot more of a running quarterback. But not running quarterback, but they're good passers and everything. But
did you mention? I'm just curious here. Did you mention a 49er?
It was a mistake. He didn't
from
mean
that
to.
San Francisco area?
I have respect for the 49ers.
No, I just wanted to hear it.
I don't have
just
respect
wanted
for
to
the
hear you
Niners.
say
I
it.
already said.
Wait a minute. I'm sorry, Brother Martin. What are your
Niners,
thoughts?
man. What?
No, I agree with Martin on that comment, but I do respect the fact that they were good, and Steve Young was.
So
good.
do I. Like even
But-
for me, like whenever they bring up the GOAT talk, which I think is ridiculous, I think like if I had to put someone there, I'd put Montana. I would. I put Montana there.
And I would only disagree with you because even in Montana's era, the rules had changed enough. When you look at great quarterbacks and the guys that went, you look at Unitas. You look at some of these guys that
Again, it goes to era.
Well, yeah, but if you put these quarterbacks, as it's gotten easier offensively for quarterbacks to play, if you put those things, some of these bigger quarterbacks I think would do well back in the day. Back in the day when Unitas you had bumping and grinding and quarterbacks would forearm you and they would bite you and everything else. I mean,
Jackham.
it was ugly back in the day, and Unitas was a great quarterback.
Sure.
Now they can't do that. You get
Right.
hit. You
That's
get hit.
why we choose our best of an era.
And that's what I'm saying. Basically, I'm saying there can never be a GOAT.
That's why I've always believed in every sport there can't
But
be.
he was
Yeah,
saying
it's
if
not
there
me.
was one, he would say Montana, and I would
Oh,
say you
okay.
can't.
Well, no.
I
In that
wouldn't-
context,
I wouldn't
what
even
it
say
says,
Montana.
in my opinion.
Yeah, and I also said if there had.
If
I had
there
to choose,
was, that's
I
like
had
Once
to-
Upon a Time in Hollywood. In his world, it's Montana. In your world, if you were to say, if there was one, who would you pick?
Well,
if there was one.
Like
Let
I
me tell
said-
you, we'll end it on this guy here. I think Montana is the greatest of all time quarterback that's named after a state.
I would agree.
But,
Until Billy Ohio comes out of college, and then
Or Joe Alaska.
Joe Alaska.
Johnny Utah.
Johnny.
So like the point I was like I went off of my own point, but like talking about like pocket passers and then like mobile quarterbacks. I feel like mobile quarterbacks, even though they have two ways of playing because they can either kill you by running the ball or by passing it, I just still think though that pocket passer is the way to go because the thing is like once a defense figures out I think a running quarterback, there's not a lot they can do. Like look at Lamar Jackson, how quickly he gets shut down. Once they start, putting, more people around him. They start like eyeing him more. They play more back because they know he can't pass the ball as well. So like once he's forcing that thing, and then they're all looking at him, they just know either like only like a few things happen. Either he can take a shot at a pass, even though most of them are far back, or because they're still looking at him. The moment he starts to try to scramble, whoever's spying him could easily just attack him from there. And like with a pocket guy, of course, if they don't have a good O-line, then they can't be good. The point I want to make though with like Mariota is that like I don't think between Carr and Mariota, I don't think either can be both. Carr is more of a pocket guy, Mariota is more of a moving the ball around because like that's why part of why Mariota lost the job to Ryan Tannehill because even though Tannehill isn't as mobile as Mariota can be, actually Tannehill's actually surprisingly more mobile than I thought. But even then, it's because Tannehill is a better passer than Mariota. Carr is a better passer than Mariota. Mariota, he played well. I'm not saying he had a bad game. I was really happy with how he played. But also, it's still even just one game against a team that's defense wasn't too good, and they weren't prepped for him. I still give credit to Mariota.
I only say Mariota was a good fit for the Raiders right during that time because their offensive line was so bad, and he could move out of the pocket. he could find space, and that's not Carr's forte. He doesn't doesn't move. He doesn't even change the pocket very much like the great quarterbacks do. He has his pocket that is the standard pocket, and if he doesn't hold up, he's done.
Yeah.
And you can't have that, and that's why I'm more than willing to move on him. He's just proven not to be as flexible a quarterback as I'd hoped.
Yeah, and that's what I'm trying to make with mobile quarterbacks. I feel like once you start playing back on them more and forcing them to pass, then that's what I think you can easily start getting Mariota. Is like, okay, you want to run the ball more? Okay, we'll just play more back and wait. Or you want to pass it? Okay, we'll just wait then. They're not gonna. That's how you treat a mobile quarterback. Is you don't rush them as much, because if you rush them, then they're just gonna run around and avoid it, and then do something spectacular. But if you just wait for them and hope that they pass with it, which Mariota isn't as good of a passer as he is a runner, then you're usually exposing them there. And I think they are pretty close to each other. I still think Carr is ahead of Mariota, in my opinion. But for me, like, to get rid of Carr, it's like you have to get someone that's a clear upgrade like Watson. And even then, I'm not a fan of what it could cost to get someone like him. And even then too, it's like the focus has to be on the defense, because it's just how bad they are. Because if you don't have a defense, if the defense is as bad as they were this year, and you get Watson, then you're just gonna be losing with him too. You're gonna win maybe.
Actually, they'll be exactly like Houston was this year, which as good as Watson was and everything else, they were still 4-12.
Yeah, and I think
so.
I've got breaking news. It just came over the line.
That's a joke.
Okay, yeah, I know.
No,
Go ahead.
Oh, what was it, Morton?
Tim Tebow just retired from baseball.
Oh.
Get out. Stop.
Tim Tebow retired from baseball.
Know. He retired from baseball forever ago.
No, just today. Just now.
Okay, all right.
Just now.
But
I'm sure it's going to be a shock.
A hot topic.
Let's talk for an hour on that.
Tim
Oh my
Tebow.
God.
Tim Tebow talk.
You know what?
Tim Tebow talk.
What
do you got?
I think as far as the Raiders, as far as the Raiders are concerned, they had a mediocre season. We're not all that pleased with Carr. Gruden, we got to suffer for him for as long as we have him, and we definitely need a defensive line. Offensive line would be good too. And if anybody has anything to say, I would like to go to best and worst.
Sounds good to me.
Well started. Go.
No, I think I'd like to Steve. And here's what if Steve, this is okay with you, I was thinking go by sport and go around the table, and then we'll go to the next sport and go around the table. Is that? What do you think?
That's fine with me. You guys okay with that?
So whatever sport you decide on will be the way we'll go.
We'll start off with baseball. So probably my favorite memory in baseball, probably attending the game. I'll do attending, and then just in general, attending the game. It would easily have to be being at Sean Manaya's no hitter. That was amazing. I remember my mom and I we were saying, do we want to go to this game?
And I was supposed to go.
Yeah, because the day before the A's got smacked by the Red Sox, and they're still in the same series against them. And it's like, man, I don't want to see them get smacked again. But it's let's just go, let's watch it. And what happens? Manaya throws a no-hitter, and it's just one of those things where it's by this 5th to 7th inning, it's oh my god, there's no hits yet. You always have that in the back of your head. It's oh my god, I'm not gonna say anything, because with how baseball can be, it's very superstitious. So it's I'm not gonna say anything, and all that, and just watching the game, inning by inning. And the crowd gets louder and louder as he gets every out. And by the time he got the 27th out, it was just oh man, it was crazy. Of course, unfortunately, there weren't too many people there, though, as usual with A's games. But it was definitely a great moment.
That was a Saturday game?
I don't remember which day it was.
Saturday game.
And then, I think it might have been Saturday. And then, just in general for baseball. One of my favorite memories, I don't think it's my favorite ever, but one memory I can just think of was just witnessing the 2014 2014 team in the first half of the year, just like seeing how good they were. I know that's not really specific enough, but it's like that time when they were the best team in baseball record-wise was just something to really behold until, the eventual collapse. And then worst, well, I could go with basically whenever they just screwed up in the postseason, probably like Kansas City. Like that has to be one of the worst memories ever. Was seeing that loss against the Kansas City Royals in the wild card game, where it looked like we had command of it. It was like a big lead, and Lester, the guy we traded Cespedes for, just collapsed. He just could. They showed his weakness because the Royals were excellent at stealing bases, and Lester can't throw to first. So they just kept stealing, and they kept doing it. And then Giovanni Soto, who was pretty good at he was a good catcher at getting guys trying to go to second. He's like, oh yeah, my hands hurt, so I can't play.
He was out like early in the game.
You got Chuck Norris, not Chuck Norris. What's his name? Derek Norris, still dealing with like concussions up there, and it was just a complete collapse, and that has to be like probably one of my worst baseball memories ever.
Okay, so let's start with the positive. Yeah, the probably in my teenage years, having the A's win 3 consecutive championships with what is now considered and justifiably so, possibly the best team ever to be compiled. They had a couple changes over the 3 years, but they were an iconic team, an amazing team, great players, Hall of Fame players. Just amazing. Something more along the lines that is close was during a game I went to. I saw Hunter and Blue pitch a doubleheader, consecutive one-hitters, and that was an amazing game. 2 games to be at. I'll never forget it. Just to see such pitching and the play of the the A's play during that time when they were just dominant was just amazing. And the teams back then, if you look at them, the Baltimores and the Red Sox and the Yankees back in that day were just overpowering, but the A's just dominated those years. As far as bad, probably I think of Kirk Gibson's home run. What a absolute knife in the chest that was. I will never forget that as long as I live. Dwayne Murphy, who had moved from the A's to the Dodgers, came up just before Gibson and took a walk.
Mike Davis.
Mike Davis, that was it. I'm sorry. And Eckersley never walked anybody. He had so few walks compared to innings that it was just people. You couldn't believe that he walked anybody. And he walks Mike Davis, and then here comes hobbling Kirk Gibson up there, and he hits a home run, and it just took the wind completely out of the A's that year. And then the last was a play on my good, which is as good as those championship teams were. When they started with the trading of Hunter and they broke up that 74 team and they went into obscurity for a number of years till from 74 to 89, they really didn't do much of anything.
We had Billy Martin, that was about it.
Yeah.
Well, my best moment is, and it's going to be most likely a more recent, just because my memory sucks. But going to the last game of the year against Texas, we had tickets to that game. It was a day game. I think it was a Wednesday or Thursday, and they needed to win the last game of the year. They were down 5-0 almost immediately, and I wasn't even at the game yet. I was waiting for a buddy of mine, Willie, to come home with the tickets. So I was talking with Brian, my friend, in front of his house, going, well, we don't even know if we want to go to this game because they're down 5-0. They're going to suck. We might as well have some beers here and listen to the rest of the game and watch it on TV. But no, we ended up going and seeing an incredible comeback and to have the players at the end of the game circle the field, congratulating all the fans, and having the fans, of course, pour the love out of them to them. It was just such a crazy atmosphere. The World Championships in 72, 73, 74, and they were even a good team in 75. They just didn't make the playoffs. Or did they lose in the playoffs? I think Boston won it that year. Not Boston. Anyway,
what team?
It wasn't Boston, but anyway, the 3 championships they had in a row. All the great players: Campaneris, Reggie Jackson, Billy North, Sal Bando, Joe Rudy, just to name a few. Gene Tennis, and the pitching. Oh my God, the pitching they had. The pitching they had was phenomenal. Hunter, Lindblad, Holtzman, exactly.
One of the best
Blue. I mean,
pitchers.
So they were
great.
Those are some of my favorite experiences. The downside, the worst part, baseball is when they dismantled the championship teams of 72, 73, 74, and when they dismantled the 6 All-Stars they had. In what year is that, kiddo?
2014.
2014, when they had 6 All-Stars, and by the next year they were all gone.
Well, not all.
Well, they had Norris, but they ended up getting rid of him shortly afterwards.
No, Norris was gone too by then. It was not Samar.
There was one player that was left over.
Casimir and Doolittle, I think Doolittle was an all-star at that time too, and Vogt was after.
Either way, they dismantled the team. So and when they got rid of Donaldson, that was a heartbreaker right there. The heart of the team, heart and soul of the team. The guy wanted to stay with the A's at probably pretty much any cost. He would have stayed. He'd taken less money. He enjoyed and loved the A's that much.
And an MVP the next year.
MVP the next year. Anyway, Joe.
All right. Well, my first and best memory of the baseball would be the very first A's game played at the Coliseum. It was the last game that I had been to live had been probably when I was 10 or 11 years old. I went to a Giants-Cubs game, I think it was, at the Candlestick Park with my best friend's father, Chris Kempster. And so those many years later, a high school friend of my father, Mel Eschen, had tickets to the very first Oakland A's game. So we went, and it was just, I was amazed because it had been so long and I was so young to go to this game and see it was the Coliseum and everything. It was just absolutely amazing. We lost. I think it was Baltimore 4-1. Tony La Russa did get a pinch hit single. Was one of only 2 hits that night by the A's. The other being a home run by Rick Monday. But it was totally a memorable experience, the whole thing. My worst, my brother described it so perfectly. The Kurt Gibson. I was at my parents' house. I didn't live at home. I was at my parents' house because I was visiting a friend in the Oakland Hills, and I decided to come down just as the game was on. Everybody was watching it, and I remember the call. And I wasn't as fervent a A's fan as my brothers here, but they were the Oakland team, and I followed them through the 70s and when they won their world championships. But yeah, what a gut punch! What a gun punch!
All right, so now we're gonna go to basketball. So my favorite basketball memory. There's a lot to go, especially with the Warriors. Especially in the last 5 years, so many things to choose from. But I think out of all of them, I'm gonna have to go with their first championship. Not that I was there for it, no, just seeing that on TV and all that, because the first time ever I saw a team that I cheer for win it all. I haven't seen the A's win it all, I haven't seen the Rays win it all, but the Warriors finally brought that to me, and unfortunately they're still the only team to be able to give me that. in my life.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And it was really amazing. I remember just like, screaming at the top of my lungs, just being so happy about it. And, the other two championships as well, they were both also really exciting, but nothing beats that first one.
Yeah.
And worst, easily, the blown 3-1 lead. No, I was at that one, Game 7 against the Cavaliers, and I was a mess on the way home. It was just
Inconsolable.
We wanted to blame you because you and Martin hadn't lost the game at all, and Martin didn't go.
Yeah,
You-
very Steven.
I don't
Well, there was
want to
Fa-
say anything about O.
It was Father's Day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember.
So, that it?
yeah, that'll be it.
Okay. So, with regard to the Warriors, you mentioned first championship, which I was like, really? The first championship? Because that's my thing is the very first championship was 74 team. Because they embodied what the current team lives by, which is team first. With Barry and George Johnson, Clifford Ray, Butch Beard.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think of the guy from UCLA. Mullen, not Mullen. Guy from UCLA.
Skinny dude,
Wilkes.
Keith Wilkes.
Keith Wilkes.
Yeah. Jamal.
Yeah, Jamal Wilkes.
UCLA,
That team went into that playoffs a complete underdog.
Oh, yeah.
There was no way they were going to win, and they end up winning and
the
getting
mighty
to the
Bulls.
finals, going in against exactly the mighty Bulls. And again, the Eastern, all the Eastern people. Oh, there's no way the team's going to win or do anything. And what do? They sweep them, 4 games in a row. Amazing accomplishment. One of the greatest shockers ever in all of history of basketball.
In sports.
When that goes well, yeah, in sports in a way. Also, with regard to that, when more currently, when the during the 73 win season, when they started the season with 24 consecutive wins, that was unbelievable. It was like every night you just figured it was a win, and it was hard to imagine when it was going to ever stop. And I remember Martin, after 2 years or so, or 3 years of being in the having tickets to the games, I remember him telling me he had never been at a home game and seen them lose.
Yeah.
Just that
too.
one stat, I was like, that's phenomenal. That's crazy. So, anyway, on the bad, the inability of the Warriors during their downtime to properly draft any player ever. They made some of the worst GM decisions to draft players.
We're not talking about Mashburn, are you?
Chris Gatling.
Chris Washburn.
I mean, you
Dudley.
could
Didn't
go
they do
down.
Dudley?
Yeah,
That guy
I mean,
did.
you could go down Russell Cross. I
gee.
mean, you could look
Name
at the
of the
players.
past.
You could look at players that they brought in and went away without even a whisper. There was a white guy in there somewhere that was just.
I think there was a couple
he
of
was-
white guys.
And you look at the players that were after them and the players they could have had, and they could have built a dynasty with the team they could have built with the draft.
They got rid of Parrish.
Yeah, they got rid of Parrish to get.
Went on to how many
Anyway,
championships?
yeah.
I
So
agree.
I mean, that was just so crazy frustrating. And then the last thing, again, more currently, was when Curry got injured after the 73 season, and it showed when they lost that 3-1 lead, and he just didn't have it. When he couldn't get by Love for a play, he had Love isolated on him out in front, and he couldn't get by him, and they ended up losing that series. I was just devastated. That was just horrible. So there you go.
Well, I got to tell you, I have so many basketball memories. My earliest was going to a basketball game with my brother Chris. We saw the Oakland Oaks And we actually got a pair of tennis shoes. It was Rick Barry tennis shoe giveaway day. And they weren't the standard canvas Converse shoes that you would buy at the store for whatever price. They were plastic shoes. But it didn't make a difference because, one, we were fans. We would get, when they went to Oakland Coliseum, when they were the Warriors, when he played with the Warriors, we got a rubber basketball with the insignia of an Indian on it.
Original logo,
yeah.
The Warriors.
Which is, it's not PC now, so they don't do that. But I don't care a crap about that. But, one of the best memories, and like I said, I got so many, is that they got the championships. That's so awesome. I saw Klay Thompson score 37 points in a quarter. That's my number one memory of all time of basketball, because on every shot, and he made these 37 points in a little over 9 minutes, and he didn't miss a shot. 13 for 13 from the field, but every shot he made, the crowd got louder and louder and louder, and I thought he might have scored around 20. I wasn't even paying attention. I just know every single shot went in. But second to that is being able to, one, go to the games with my son. Stephen had become such a sports nut, and going to the games with my wife. We were lucky enough to, our first season of buying Warriors season tickets was the first championship they had. Now, we had season tickets. Well, we still have season tickets to this day. But we saw 3 championships and experienced those championships. And like we were saying earlier, me and Steven, the games we went to, we hadn't lost in over 2 years. So every single game they won. We had such a great and incredible winning streak. So that's basically my favorite memory. I got so many, but the worst, in my opinion, is when the fucking team left. They left Oakland to go to San Francisco. And I'm never going to forgive the Warriors for doing that to the city of Oakland.
And the further slap of adding Oakland to their jerseys now in San Francisco,
so
that
it's
they
almost
never.
like rubbing your nose.
It is, and having Oakland on the main thing, that's they.
Because a little side story, and my wife works for Delta Dental, and they were switching her position to something else. She was basically going to lose her job unless she was going to go to Pennsylvania or go to Sacramento or Pennsylvania. And she asked me, she said, well, what do you think about Sacramento? I said, nope. She goes, why? I keep my job. I said, 3 reasons why. A's, Warriors, Raiders. We lived 10 minutes away from the Coliseum, which is where the A's, Warriors, and Raiders played. So, being big baseball fans, and nothing beats going in baseball to the first game of the year. You get to smell the fresh cut grass. Every season starts fresh, and it's just every first game of the year is special to me. So that killed me when the Warriors left. We still have the A's. Raiders are gone.
Even the A's though, they're probably gonna eventually move to the team. Even if they stay.
You
in
shut
Oakland.
your mouth.
But it's probably going to be eventual too that they go to, I think it's not Howard Terminal, but they plan on going somewhere else.
Yeah, they'll stay in Oakland, hopefully. Anyway,
Yeah.
Joe.
Kind of A and B. There used to be, with the San Francisco Warriors, they used to have double headers. My father took me to a double header at the Cow Palace with the Lakers and Celtics and the Warriors and Philadelphia.
Now, was that a preseason or regular season?
No, it was preseason.
Okay, yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
They used to have the exhibitions, and they would make a big deal out of them, put them in huge venues, and there'd be stuff going on all day. And But an amazing memory, just an absolutely amazing memory. I remember watching Dad was like transfixed on the games, unlike now. And he taught me a lot about what was going on, which was great. But my favorite memories of the Warriors, of course, is their first championship. But for none of the reasons that were mentioned, for 2 years prior to their championship year, they had to go through the Bucks, who unfortunately had Lou Alcindor, who became
Jabbar.
Kareem
Abdul
Jabbar.
Jabbar.
He was the one that stopped them every year.
Bobby Dandridge.
Then they get
Oscar
by the Bucks, and they have to face the Bullets in the finals. And the Bullets were overwhelming favorites. And it was such amazing. They had a guy, they called him, what was his name? The center. Unseld. Wes Unseld. Had the biggest, literally the largest rear end in the NBA. And he was a center, and
Until
he
Barkley.
could totally complete. No, I think he would have kicked Barkley's ass. But he was absolutely dominating. And not only did we beat them, we swept the series for that championship. I think that is so underreported, underlooked, but that's truly my favorite.
Well, that would have been my error. Then I mentioned that they beat Chicago, which wasn't. They didn't beat Chicago. They beat Chicago to get in because the Chicago at the time was in the West.
Yeah.
And that was an unbelievable win. And then of course they beat the Bullets, which were heavily favored.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I made a mistake there, and I'm just clarifying.
We're gonna let you slide on that one, right?
Well, I'm just clarifying.
You're older now, right?
What do you got? What do you got?
your worst.
Raiders?
I got a
Wait a minute,
worst.
he's got his worst.
I got a
Oh,
worst.
I'm sorry.
I still have a worst.
I apologize.
It's okay.
I apologize. You're a plus guy in
My worst would have to be the championship that they lost in such disappointing fashion with Draymond Green, the Draymond Green situation, and the way it just all fell apart. And it was such a letdown for after such an amazing season. It was just truly the biggest letdown. And when you're a Warrior fan, with all the ups and downs that we've had, and I think we're all such great fans, to have that happen when it happened and as it happened was probably one of the biggest heartbreaks of my Warrior experience.
It was tough.
Yeah, it was tough.
All right, so
Steven.
now on to football. So my favorite football memory, attending the game would easily have to be Raiders against the Chiefs in 2017. That was Thursday Night Football. That was when there was a legitimate shootout between Carr and Alex Smith. Of course, Alex Smith, he's not like a great quarterback, but he was still pretty good with the Chiefs at that time. And they were just scoring back and forth at each other. Many explosive plays. That was Bowman's first game as a Raider. That was something to attribute to think about, that he was actually a Raider at one point. And then how it came down to literally the last second. They had to do 2 extra plays untimed because the Chiefs were getting called for penalties.
Yeah, I remember that. That was a night game, right?
Yeah, Thursday night. And when they first thought they got the touchdown to Jared Cook, it was an amazing catch by Cook. But his butt hit the ground before the ball got in the end zone. So they're like, okay, we got to do another play. There's like 10 seconds left. And Carr hits Crabtree, but he gets called for pushing off the defender. And then it's like, okay, we got to do another one. Then Carr throws it to Cook, but it goes off his hands. Like, I don't even know how he dropped it, but it goes off of his hands. But they end up calling a holding on the defense. So because the game can't end on a defensive penalty, another on-time down. Then he throws it to Cordero Patterson, and he doesn't get 2 feet in, but he got pushed out before he could make the attempt to grab it. So they call holding again. And so another on-time down. Everyone there is like, oh my God, like that. It's like, we can't take this anymore.
And this is your best?
We
Sounds like a whole lot of bad, but go on. I'm sorry.
We couldn't take it anymore, and then like it's all it's got to be down to like one more play. There's no way they can have another penalty, and so Carr rolls left, and which I throws to the Crabtree right at the very edge of the end zone, catches it right with the pylon like next to his knees, and he rolls over, and you see the ref just put his hands up for the touchdown. Everyone is going nuts. And then, which Tavecchio, if anyone remembers that guy, the kicker that year. He barely gets the extra point in, or at least it looked worse than it actually was. Especially when you have the side angle, like it's hard to judge how it's going to go. And like it was just a really big moment, getting a win like that against the Chiefs, especially since beating the Chiefs is very rare nowadays.
Yeah.
And worst probably would have to be Carr's broken leg, because things were going so well that year, and I have a lot of thoughts on that because that game was going so well, especially it's because usually every game was coming down to the wire, but that one they were just killing the Colts. And everybody, we mentioned Pat McAfee earlier. He tried a fake punt but got immediately bulldozed before he could get to the first down marker. So I just wanted to mention that. But they were doing so well. Remember DeAndre Washington too. He had a couple rushing touchdowns. Didn't have any touchdowns all year, and he gets 2 in 100 yards. And it's like they got like 33 points, like 33-14, I think. And Carr's still out there, even though it's I think the fourth quarter, like 10 minutes left. Carr's still out there. He drops back and he takes an awkward hit. The first ever sack Donald Penn allows all year. And it's easy because he slipped on the play too.
Yeah, you look at that.
They had the fewest. They had the fewest
16.
allowed sacks in that year in the NFL.
And see how well Carr did with that.
Yeah.
But he lands awkward. I think it's because his cleats were still planted in the grass as he's twisting around and must have broke it. And of course at the time you don't know what happened exactly, but you see he's still down on the ground and he looks like he is in pain. And you see him walk off, and I remember seeing tweets from people at the game just saying like you could hear a pin drop in that place. Like, that place is known for being loud, but it was dead silent. And just like the thought of like what happened to him took over. And you see Jack Del Rio come into the press conference room. You can tell that he was crying. He says he's got a broken fibula and all that. It's like, oh my God. Everything was going so well, and that led to a lot of bad things. And like one of my personal thoughts is like, when you're up as big as you were, why are you still passing the ball? Like, you got to just run it or put someone else in at quarterback. When you have that big of a lead nearing the end of the season, there's a lot of things about that was just so frustrating. It led to many bad things for, you wonder what could have been if that didn't happen. And people will criticize Carr, like, well, he hasn't had any playoff experience. Like, well, that's a big reason why we could have known if he played in that game, but he didn't.
Yeah.
And that's my worst one.
So mine is for the good. The 76-77 Super Bowl, where they beat Minnesota. Amazing game. I remember being so friggin' excited to watch my team. I was a senior in high school. Being able to watch my team actually compete for a championship. And I kept thinking, and Minnesota, I think this was their fourth game. They had lost 3 previous Super Bowls, and Bud Grant was a iconic coach,
poor guy.
The poor guy. He brought 4 teams to the Super Bowl, and the 77 was the 4th, and the Raiders just crushed them. And it included one of the best plays that I ever saw, which was Willie Brown making the interception I think it was right near the end of the first half. He makes the interception and runs it in for a TD. And then another really key point was Ray Guy getting into the Hall of Fame.
Changed the game, changed the position.
Again, he was an iconic player that changed the position. He's somebody who went in, and after that, the punting game became something completely different. and
First number one pick ever.
yeah, first number
punter
one
ever, number one pick.
and the thing at that point, which is just stupid, no kicker was in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
None. And you look at kickers that were even before him. There had to be one guy deserving of it. But if there was one guy that ever deserved it, it was Ray Guy, and he was amazing. And it's sad that well, no, he was still alive. He did his entered thing and everything else. I was so happy that I was joyous watching him do his
They created a stat because of him.
Yes.
You know, which was
Hang time.
amazing. Yeah, hang time.
Okay, as far as bad, gosh, immaculate reception,
Okay. We're going to go down the list.
tuck rule, two, and I say those two because both of those sent teams on rolls that would have never have happened if they had lost those games. You have, and people say, oh, well, Pittsburgh was still really good and Patriots were still really good. You're only good until you get over the hump. And if you can't get over that hump, those would have been stoppers for both of those teams. They wouldn't have possibly realized how good they were at Pittsburgh, or they wouldn't have ever be able to get over the fact that they couldn't beat the Raiders. Just like the Patriots might have got over never being able to beat the Raiders as well. And both of them won on a sham. And those two games,
controversial call.
both those two games, I hate the two teams to this day. Pittsburgh, Patriots, can't stand them for those two reasons. And the last one is the two moves to LA and the move to Vegas. First one sucked the wind out of me, and what made it even worse is that they won a championship in LA in 80, right after moving down there. It was
I think they won in 80 and then moved.
No, they moved and
they
won.
They
It was
won
like the biggest,
in LA.
It was the biggest up years in football
They
history.
went down. They went down to LA and won either I'm pretty sure they won
That was
the
the one
very next
They
year.
did. They did.
And there was Howie Long
Yeah.
was the big star for them defensively and
on
they had other
84.
guys. Huh?
84.
80.
No, 80.
I don't think Howie Long was on the team in 80.
Sure he was.
Yes, he was. So that
Come on, Mr. Raider
having that
fan.
horrible thing, and then of course their current move to Vegas, which makes me no longer a Raider fan, which is sad.
Well, I got a lot of favorite memories of Raiders. One is it was so cool for me and my brother Phil to have season tickets to the Raiders. So we went to
The Wall of Fame.
Yeah, we got on the Wall of Fame, our names together, at the Coliseum, which I'm pretty sure is still there.
It is. I know.
That was really cool because we saw a lot of great games. The championship, of course, it was mentioned earlier, against Minnesota. It goes to the post. Unfortunately, my memory isn't that good to remember a lot of games. But, those are my biggest memories as a Raider fan. The worst thing is when they left again. It didn't bother me that much because they were staying semi-local, I guess. If you can just consider 400 miles local. Because as far as I'm concerned, with them moving to LA, I didn't hate the team because the team wanted to stay. It's the owner that decided to move them. So you can't fault the players. I still love the team. But nevertheless, they did leave, and they left. When they left this time, and Mark Davis, once again, it was an owner decision. He was in cahoots with the Dick from Dallas. I'll just call him the Dick from Dallas, the owner, Jerry Jones, who orchestrated the deal. So it wouldn't have made it any difference what Oakland had to offer. They were going to move to Vegas no matter what. Davis didn't even list any offer Oakland had because of the previous deal he had made with Jerry Jones.
Joe.
All right, so I have what they call a honorable mention, and that's going to be the at Mom and Dad's bar Monday Night Football, Broncos home field, Raiders at Broncos, and Broncos were favored by almost 2 touchdowns, and it was Monday Night Football. And everybody expected the Raiders to lose. I remember the pregame and everything, and I remember seeing it was an absolute snowstorm. It was an absolute whiteout, and which means what? Weather is the big equalizer. No matter how good you are playing, how another team, how good or bad they are, weather is the big equalizer. It snowed. And it was a blizzard, and the Raiders won with a field goal, very end of the game. Amazing. They were Denver was favored by 11.5. It was just an absolute.
Who'd you have that day, Joe?
No betting involved. Certainly wasn't good. No.
Okay.
The Broncos at home? No, not a good idea. Okay, so I think my biggest one is I was living in Arizona. I came home for a weekend. It was just before Thanksgiving. And I was met at the airport from Philip. And you guys had gotten tickets to the Raider game that weekend.
Thursday Night Football.
It was amazing. It was the most amazing thing.
Was it Monday?
What's that?
Was it
No,
Monday or Wednesday?
I'll tell you what it was.
It was a Thursday night game, I think.
I think it was. Unfortunately, they lost. They lost. They lost 28-31 at the very end of the game.
Last play of the game, right?
Yeah,
Was that KC?
No, Broncos.
Broncos.
Yeah.
'Cause I saw them lose to when Montana came back. They lost to Montana. End of a game on a Monday night game.
Yeah.
It rained that night. I was in the stadium and then I saw them lose to Stabler when he was with Houston.
Yeah.
On a last minute.
Yeah.
Three-point
They had a way
play.
of doing that. And my worst one. Now that they lost, but what was wonderful was I was surrounded by my family, and they had done this as a surprise, and it was just absolutely amazing. It was just amazing. Now the worst is also unfortunately involves a Denver Broncos. Again, I was coming home. It was November. I was living in Arizona, and we had tickets. I had gotten tickets ahead of time. It was a Monday Night Football game. It was cold. It was miserable. It wasn't raining, but it was freezing. It was absolutely freezing. But the Raiders played well. The Raiders played really, really well. They kept up with Denver the entire time. And, of course, Denver got the ball last, and we lost 22-21 on the last play of the game.
Yeah.
Now I got one for you. This is the one I found for you.
I have another one when you're done too.
Now
it'll be a quick one.
Yeah. Now back in the day when it was, when you'd go to a Raider game, the Coliseum was just like any other place, man. There was a place for the stoners. There was a place for the rockers. There was a place for, you know what I mean? It was just an amazing thing. And I was hanging out with Gary Kessler at the time. The year before they had traded us Dan Pastorini for Kenny Stabler. So who ends up in the wild card game at the Oakland Coliseum? The Oakland Raiders and the Houston Oilers. We're going against Kenny Stabler.
You're smoothest, man.
It was so amazing. It was I can't say it was a really good game if you're a Raider fan, but it wasn't a good day for Stabler.
Oh, he kicked his ass.
Hey, man, what's his name? Lester Hayes. Lester Hayes sacked him and intercepted him. He had a game, an amazing game. What's great about this game It was on Sunday, December 28th.
Boom. Birthday. For those,
And-
those not familiar with the history of the family.
After winning that game, it was the first wild card team to ever win a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But it started out with Kenny.
This is when you were going to bring it up.
Yeah, another one was a birthday game, and Mom had bought, I think 11 tickets for friends and family to go to the Raider game when they played the Kansas City Chiefs, and it was a rainstorm.
The third deck game.
I was at that
God,
game.
that was
Cousin Chrissy went.
Yeah, when we all
Remember I had
ended up going to the
Norma's
game,
son.
and it was a rainstorm. We ended up leaving at halftime. As you went down the stairs, you had to deal with this waterfall.
Torrential waterfall.
Yeah, going down the stairs, and we all were so soaked. We went to Walmart and got some dry clothes, and then ended up going to Phil's house.
I didn't.
That's right. In Alameda. He lived in
didn't know
Alameda.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I remember.
Yeah.
Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the memory. Oh, I'm sorry.
One last thing, and I mentioned, and I just thought of it. I mentioned Ray Guy getting into the Hall of Fame. Kenny Stabler getting in the Hall of Fame,
Absolutely.
and sadly, that's why I almost paused and asked if he had passed yet.
Yeah, he had already passed.
He had already passed, and that was a shame,
Yeah.
because Kenny Stabler was one of the great clutch quarterbacks ever to play.
Absolutely.
And he did not get the credit for it, and because he was such a crazy guy and lived his life the way he wanted to. He was not maybe the most popular guy, but he was beyond great.
And nobody threw the touch pass like him.
Oh God, he just was so smart. He just knew. I mean, some of the games, iconic plays that also changed again. The fumble play, the sea of hands play.
Yeah.
I mean, these are all legendary plays from Kenny Stabler,
All
and
involved
I
in,
will always. He's
Love
always
him.
been one of my favorite players.
And
Always.
cheers too to Tom Flores, who has now
Yeah.
been elected into
and
the
Wood
Hall of Fame.
and
Charles Woodson.
and Charles
And
Woodson.
Charles Woodson,
Here,
big
here.
Bay Area.
who left, who came and left, and then came back
again.
and was great even
Yeah.
when he came back.
Yep.
So anyway,
This was fun. This was absolutely amazing. Thank you very much for letting me be a part of it.
And thank you guys, Chris and Joey, for being part of our podcast.
actually, it's like I said, it's absolute as much fun as I thought it might be, and I would be happy to do it again anytime. If
We're
you
not gonna
guys,
ask you that.
I know you're probably not going to ask me again. I'll have to start a competing podcast, which I will be letting you all know. So don't listen to Steve's podcast anymore. Listen to Chris's podcast.
Yeah.
You can delete that.
No, that's fine.
Anyway, this is Martin Avila saying goodbye.
Chris Avila saying goodbye.
Joey Avalos saying goodbye.
Stephen Avila saying goodbye.
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 Good night.